It's done. The controlling shares are ours now. She has nothing left.
Imagine standing at your 74th birthday party, 200 guests raising their glasses in celebration. But through the wall, you hear your son whisper to his wife, "Mom's just a useless old woman who trusts me completely. Today, she'll sign the papers, and we'll take everything. The child you loved more than life itself, the one you sacrificed everything for, now smiles to your face while setting a trap to steal your home, your wealth, your freedom. What would you do when your birthday becomes the day your fate is decided?" Tonight, one mother's story will chill you to the bone and make you question, who do you trust? Welcome to Voices of Auntie Rose, where stories of family, forgiveness, resilience, and the courage to rise above betrayal come to life with heart and soul. We're so glad you're here, joining a community that celebrates the unbreakable human spirit. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And it would be amazing if you could like this video, share it, or drop a comment letting us know what time it is and which city or country you're watching from. Your shares and comments are the greatest gift, the powerful inspiration that keeps this channel growing and spreading meaningful life lessons every single day. Now, let's dive into today's story. I stood in my kitchen at 2:30 in the morning, my arthritic hands wrapped around a cold cup of chamomile tea, listening to my daughter-in-law's voice drifting through the heating vent from the guest bedroom below. At 73, I'd learned that insomnia was just another unwelcome companion of aging, but tonight felt different. There was something in Michael's hushed tone, my 55-year-old son, that made my chest tighten with an inexplicable dread. "Everything's falling into place perfectly, Ashley," he whispered, his voice carrying that same excited pitch from when he was 12 and planning to sneak cookies from my jar. "Mom won't suspect a thing. After 25 years, she still trusts me completely. 25 years since his father Richard's death. 25 years of being both mother and father, provider and protector." The ceramic mug trembled in my hands as Ashley's response floated up, her voice dripping with honeyed manipulation that I'd somehow missed for the past 3 years. "Are you absolutely certain about the Boston property valuations, babe? Your mother's colonial in Beacon Hill alone must be worth at least $4 million now, not to mention the Nantucket cottage and her investment portfolio. My late husband's family home, our sanctuary where Michael took his first steps, where we'd hosted 40 Thanksgivings, where Richard had whispered his last "I love you" before the cancer took him. They were discussing it like a commodity, a line item on a spreadsheet. "Mom's turning 74 next month," Michael continued, and I heard papers rustling. "The trust fund Dad left has grown to nearly $6 million with the Apple and Microsoft stocks. Once we get her to sign the papers at the anniversary party, we'll have power of attorney. Dr. Harrison already agreed to provide the documentation about her declining mental capacity for a small fee." The mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the Italian marble Richard had insisted on installing. The crash echoed through the house like a gunshot. I stood frozen, ceramic shards scattered around my bare feet, my mind struggling to process the betrayal bleeding through those vents. This was my son, my Michael, who I'd nursed through pneumonia, who I'd held through his father's funeral, who I'd given everything to without question. "Did you hear something?" Ashley's voice sharpened with paranoia. "Just the old heating system," Michael dismissed. "This ancient house is always making noise. Another reason we need to move Mom to that assisted living facility in Brookline. Sunrise Manor has availability, and once she's there, we can start liquidating assets." Sunrise Manor. I'd driven past that depressing brick building countless times, watching elderly residents stare blankly through windows like prisoners. My legs gave way, and I sank onto the kitchen stool, a piece of ceramic cutting into my heel. The physical pain was nothing compared to the knife twisting in my chest. For the past 3 years, I'd funded their entire existence, their $4,500 monthly rent for their Back Bay penthouse, their BMW lease payments, Ashley's designer shopping sprees at Copley Place, their weekly dinners at L'Espalier. Just last month, I'd written them a check for $30,000 for what they claimed was an emergency medical procedure. I'd depleted my savings, even cashed in some bonds, because Michael had looked me in the eyes and said, "Mom, you're our rock. We don't know what we'd do without you." Now I knew exactly what they'd do without me, put me in a home and pillage everything Richard and I had built over 47 years of marriage. My hands shook violently as I gripped the counter, my reflection in the kitchen window showing a woman I didn't recognize, hollow-eyed, pale, suddenly looking every one of my 73 years. When had I become nothing more than a bank account to my only child? When had his love, if it ever existed, transformed into this calculated greed? Your mother's birthday party next month will be perfect, Ashley continued, her voice taking on that sanctimonious tone she used when pretending to care. We'll invite all her friends from the church, her book club, make it a grand celebration. Then, after the champagne toast, you'll give your speech about how worried you are about her living alone, how she's been forgetting things, mixing up medications. She hasn't actually forgotten anything, Michael admitted with a laugh that chilled me to my core, cruel, dismissive. Nothing like the boy who used to laugh at my silly jokes. Doesn't matter. Once Dr. Harrison testifies and her pastor sees her confusion at the party, no court will question the power of attorney. We'll be in control within a week. I pressed my hand against my mouth, stifling a sob that threatened to tear from my throat. They'd planned every detail, orchestrated my humiliation, my imprisonment, the theft of everything I owned. The room spun, and I grabbed the counter as my knees buckled. Nausea overwhelmed me, and I barely made it to the sink before my body rejected the betrayal along with my dinner. As I stood there, gripping the sink, tears streaming down my face, I heard Ashley's final words before they apparently decided to celebrate their scheme in other ways. Sarah Mitchell never saw it coming. Neither will your pathetic mother. Zara Mitchell. Dear God, Sarah from my book club had disappeared into a nursing home 6 months ago after her daughter claimed she was showing signs of dementia. We'd all believed it, sent flowers, visited her once before her daughter restricted visitors. The truth hit me like ice water. This was a playbook, a proven strategy. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They didn't know about the letter I'd received from my father's estate attorney 2 weeks ago. They didn't know about the $8 million inheritance from my estranged brother James, who'd passed away in Switzerland, leaving everything to his only surviving sibling. They didn't know that their 73-year-old pathetic mother had just become wealthier than their greedy hearts could imagine. As dawn broke over Boston Harbor, painting the sky the color of old blood, I made a decision. They wanted to play games with my life, my dignity, my future. Fine. But I'd learned long ago from Richard's business dealings that the person who strikes first rarely wins. The one who waits, watches, and strikes last, that's the one left standing. My son thought he knew his mother. He was about to learn exactly how wrong he was. The morning after my devastating discovery, I watched Michael transform into someone I'd never seen before, or perhaps someone who'd always been there, hidden beneath a mask I'd been too blind to remove. He emerged from the guest room at 9:30, something that hadn't happened in years. Usually, he and Ashley would sleep until noon, claiming exhaustion from their demanding careers that seemed to consist mainly of spending my money. "Morning, Mom!" Michael's voice boomed through the kitchen with manufactured enthusiasm that made my skin crawl. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I had to force myself not to recoil from his touch. The cologne he wore, Tom Ford, $300 a bottle that I'd bought him last Christmas, now smelled like betrayal. "You're looking absolutely radiant today. Have you done something different with your hair?" Radiant. Yesterday, I was getting frail and showing my age according to the conversations I'd overheard between him and Ashley. Today, suddenly, I was radiant. The whiplash of his manipulation left me dizzy, gripping the kitchen island for support while my stomach churned with fresh nausea. "Michael, you're up early," I managed, my voice steadier than my trembling hands as I poured coffee into his Harvard mug, the one from the university I'd spent $400,000 sending him to, only to watch him squander every opportunity. "Well, I wanted to discuss something special with you." He sat at the breakfast nook, the same spot where he'd told me about failing his bar exam for the 3rd time, where he'd promised to pay me back every penny of the law school tuition. That was 8 years and $500,000 ago. Your 74th birthday is coming up, and Ashley and I want to throw you the celebration of a lifetime. We're thinking the Ritz-Carlton ballroom, maybe 200 guests? 200 witnesses to my planned humiliation. 200 people to watch as my son declared me incompetent. The room tilted, and I clutched my coffee mug so tightly I thought it might shatter like the one last night. My chest constricted, each breath becoming a monumental effort as panic clawed at my throat. Ashley glided in then, her Lululemon yoga outfit pristine despite never actually exercising. She was 32, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and veneered teeth that had cost me $18,000. Oh, Sarah. She'd never called me Mom, not once in 3 years. I was just telling my mother about your birthday plans. She's so excited to help coordinate everything. Her mother, Patricia, who'd never spoken more than 10 words to me despite all the family dinners I'd hosted, all the gifts I'd given, all the checks I'd written to bail them out of their temporary financial situations. The hypocritical warmth in Ashley's voice was like acid on an open wound. "That's very thoughtful," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the roaring in my ears. "We want everything to be perfect," Ashley continued, her manicured hand another expense I'd covered monthly reaching for the orange juice I'd freshly squeezed. "After all, you only turned 74 once, and we want everyone to see how much we cherish you." Cherish. The word hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled backward, my hip colliding painfully with the counter. They mistook my shock for elderly clumsiness. "Mom, are you okay?" Michael jumped up with exaggerated concern, his hands hovering near my elbows as if I might topple over at any moment. "Maybe you should sit down. Have you been taking your medications? You seem a bit unsteady." "I'm fine," I said firmly, stepping away from his false solicitude. But I wasn't fine. My heart was racing so violently I could hear it in my ears, my vision blurring at the edges as 30 years of memories crashed over me like a tsunami. I remembered Michael at 6, sobbing in my arms after Richard's funeral, promising he'd take care of me forever. I remembered teaching him to ride his bike in Boston Common, bandaging his scraped knees, staying up all night when he had the flu. I remembered scrimping and saving after Richard died, working 2 jobs to keep him in private school, missing meals so he could have everything his friends had. "Actually," Michael said, his tone shifting to something more calculating, "there's something else we wanted to discuss. Ashley found this amazing investment opportunity, a tech startup that's guaranteed to triple our money within 6 months. We just need about $200,000 for the initial buy-in." $200,000. They'd already bled me for $3 million over the years, and still they wanted more. My knees buckled, and this time I couldn't stop myself from sinking into the kitchen chair. The room spun violently, my stomach heaving as bile rose in my throat. "It's a sure thing," Ashley chimed in, her voice taking on that wheedling tone that had manipulated me so many times before. "My friend Madison's husband is one of the founders. They're about to go public. We could make millions, and then we could finally pay you back everything we owe you." Everything they owed me. If I calculated honestly, it would be enough to buy a small country. But it wasn't about the money, it had never been about the money. It was about the love I'd poured into an empty vessel, the devotion I'd given to a son who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with failing health. I'll need to think about it," I managed, my voice cracking as tears threatened to spill. "The market's been volatile lately, and—" "Mom," Michael interrupted, his voice taking on an edge of impatience that cut through his fake concern like a knife. "You're not getting any younger. What are you saving it for? You can't take it with you, and it's all going to us anyway. Why not let us invest it now while we can still make something of it?" The casual cruelty of his words, "you can't take it with you," shattered something fundamental inside me. This was my son openly discussing my death as an inevitability he was eagerly anticipating. My vision went dark at the edges, and I gripped the table as the room tilted dangerously. "I need to lie down," I whispered, standing on legs that felt like water. "I'm not feeling well." "Of course you're not feeling well," Ashley said with false sympathy that made me want to scream. "You're pushing yourself too hard, trying to maintain this huge house all by yourself. Have you thought about maybe downsizing? There are some lovely assisted living communities that would take much better care of you." Assisted living. Sunrise Manor. Their plan was already in motion, and they weren't even trying to hide their eagerness to dispose of me. I made it 3 steps before my legs gave out completely. Michael caught me, his hands gripping my arms with surprising strength. "See? This is exactly what we're talking about," he said to Ashley over my head as if I wasn't even there. "She's getting worse every day. We need to act fast before something serious happens. Before something serious happens. Before I could protect myself. Before I could expose their plan." As Michael half carried me to the living room sofa, I caught sight of our family portrait on the mantel, Richard, young Michael, and me, taken just months before Richard's diagnosis. We looked so happy, so complete. Richard's eyes seemed to follow me, and I could almost hear his voice. "Fight, Sarah. Don't let them win." "I'll call Dr. Harrison," Ashley was saying, her phone already in her hand. "He can come by this afternoon for a wellness check." "No," I said firmly, finding strength in my fury. "I don't need a doctor. I just need rest." They exchanged a look, one of those silent communications that conspirators perfect. Michael's jaw tightened with frustration, but Ashley placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Of course, Mom," Michael said, the false endearment dripping with condescension. "You rest. We'll handle everything for your party. You don't need to worry about a single thing." As they left me there, already discussing venues and guest lists for my public execution, I lay on the sofa where Richard had spent his final weeks. My body shook with silent sobs, my chest aching with a pain that had nothing to do with my age and everything to do with the devastating realization that my son, my baby boy, was eagerly planning my downfall. But they'd made one crucial error in their perfect plan. They'd shown their hand too early, given me time to prepare. And Sarah Mitchell from the book club? I'd visited her last week at Sunrise Manor. She'd whispered through her medicated haze, "Don't trust anyone, Sarah. Not even family. Especially not family." Now I understood. And now, I would fight. That night, after Michael and Ashley had finally retreated to their guest suite, I dragged myself upstairs to my bedroom, Richard's, and my sanctuary for 47 years. Each step felt like climbing Mount Everest, my body betraying me as violently as my son had. The carved oak banister that Richard had lovingly restored became my lifeline as vertigo crashed over me in waves, my vision swimming with unshed tears and exhaustion. I collapsed onto our king-sized bed, still dressed in the same clothes from morning, unable to summon the energy to change. The Egyptian cotton sheets, a 25th anniversary gift from Richard, felt like sandpaper against my hypersensitive skin. Everything hurt. My chest ached with a physical pain so intense, I wondered if this was what a heart attack felt like. Maybe it would be better if it was. At least then, Michael's problem would solve itself without the humiliation of a public betrayal. But no, I couldn't give him that satisfaction. Sleep eluded me entirely. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face morphing from the innocent baby I'd held in the delivery room to the calculating stranger plotting my imprisonment. 3 a.m. found me hunched over Richard's old mahogany desk, my laptop screen the only light in the darkness. My fingers, stiff with arthritis that had worsened from stress, trembled as I typed Michael Sterling Boston into the search bar. What I discovered sent me rushing to the bathroom, my knees crashing painfully onto the cold tile as my body expelled what little I'd managed to eat. There it was, in black and white, a business registration for Sterling Investment Consultants LLC, filed 6 months ago, with Ashley listed as co-owner. The address? A virtual office in the financial district. The business account? Linked to wire transfers totaling $800,000 over the past year. $800,000, my money. Money I'd given them for medical emergencies, car repairs, debt consolidation, all lies, every single transfer a calculated theft from a mother who loved too blindly. My whole body convulsed with sobs so violent I couldn't breathe. I crawled across the bathroom floor, my nightgown soaked with sweat and tears, reaching for my phone with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The photo gallery opened to last year's Thanksgiving, Michael's arm around me, his smile broad and seemingly genuine as he toasted to the best mom in the world. The same day he'd asked for $50,000 for Ashley's emergency surgery. There had been no surgery. I'd called Massachusetts General Hospital from the bathroom, claiming to be confirming insurance details. No patient named Ashley Sterling had been admitted that entire month. The betrayal hit me with such force that I blacked out momentarily, my head striking the bathtub edge as I fell. When consciousness returned, blood trickled from a gash above my eyebrow, but I felt nothing. Physical pain had become irrelevant compared to the emotional agony consuming me from within. I dragged myself to Richard's study at 4:30, my body moving on autopilot while my mind fractured into 1,000 pieces. His leather chair still smelled faintly of his cologne Aramis, the same bottle for 30 years. I pulled his old filing cabinet open, my bloodied fingers leaving smears on the metal handles. There, in a folder marked emergency only, was the document that would change everything. Richard's handwriting, still clear after 25 years. "My darling Sarah, if you're reading this, Something has gone terribly wrong. Remember the Zurich account. Remember what I taught you about protecting yourself. Trust no one with this information, not even Michael. Especially not Michael if he's become what I feared he might. The signs were there, my love. I'm sorry I didn't do more. The Zurich account. I'd forgotten it existed. $12 million in Swiss francs that Richard had inherited from his grandfather, a Holocaust survivor who'd never trusted American banks after escaping Germany. Richard had made me memorize the account numbers, the passwords, the security protocols. Just in case, he'd said, his eyes dark with unspoken worry. My laptop screen blurred through tears as I accessed the account for the first time since his death. 12 million had grown to 18 million with conservative investments, untouched, unknown to Michael. My salvation hidden in plain sight while I'd depleted everything else trying to buy my son's love. A door creaked downstairs. I froze, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Footsteps Ashley's, lighter than Michael's, moved through the kitchen. The refrigerator opened. Normal midnight snacking, or checking if I was awake. Paranoia and reality had become indistinguishable. I heard her on the phone, her voice carrying up through the old house's thin walls. Yes, Dr. Harrison. She's definitely deteriorating. Today she nearly collapsed twice, forgot our names several times, and kept talking to her dead husband's photo. Michael's really worried. Yes, Tuesday at the party would be perfect for the evaluation. No, she won't consent, but if enough witnesses see her confusion. Lies. Every word a calculated lie. I hadn't forgotten anything, hadn't talked to Richard's photo while they were present, hadn't shown any sign of confusion. But who would believe me? The 73-year-old woman against her concerned family and a respected physician? My body betrayed me again, this time with uncontrollable shaking that rattled Richard's chair against the desk. I stuffed my fist into my mouth to muffle the keening sound, trying to escape a wounded animal's cry that would surely bring them running with their false concern and recording phones. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were plotting to declare me mentally incompetent while I sat here, more lucid than I'd been in years, planning my survival with the clarity that comes only from complete betrayal. Every synapse fired with purpose now. The fog of maternal devotion finally lifted to reveal the battlefield I'd been standing on, unaware and unarmored, for years. Dawn painted the study windows crimson appropriate, considering the blood that would soon be on Michael's hands if his plan succeeded. But as I stared at the Swiss account balance, a different plan began forming. One that would require every ounce of strength I had left, every lesson Richard had taught me about business and survival, every instinct my 73 years had honed. The photo on Richard's desk our wedding day, September 15th, 1975, seemed to watch me with knowing eyes. I promise, I whispered to his frozen smile, I won't let them win. Not our son, not anymore. He chose his path. Footsteps on the stairs, heavy ones this time, Michael, my finger hovering over the laptop's power button as his knock rattled the study door. Mom, are you awake? We need to talk about the party preparations. Ashley's made some wonderful plans. Wonderful plans. Plans to bury me alive while stealing everything Richard and I had built with love, sweat, and sacrifice. I closed the laptop, slipped the Zurich papers back into their folder, and wiped the blood from my face with Richard's monogrammed handkerchief. Coming, dear, I called out, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me. Let them think they'd won. Let them plan their party, gather their witnesses, prepare their legal documents. Because Sarah Mitchell from the book club hadn't just whispered a warning through her medication haze. She'd pressed a business card into my palm, Amanda Chen, attorney at law, specializing in elder abuse and estate protection. She saved what she could of my dignity, Sarah had murmured. Let her save yours before it's too late. It wasn't too late. Not yet. But as I stood to face my son, my legs nearly buckling from exhaustion and grief, I knew the hardest battle of my life was about to begin. The battle to accept that the child I'd loved more than life itself had become my greatest enemy. The study door opened to reveal not just Michael, but Ashley and someone I'd never seen before, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a charcoal suit that screamed authority. My blood turned to ice as I recognized the calculating look in her eyes, the same predatory assessment I'd seen in nature documentaries when wolves circled wounded prey. Mom, this is Eleanor Blackwood, Michael announced, his voice carrying that false cheerfulness that now made my skin crawl. She's a family transition specialist who helps with delicate situations. Family transition specialist. The euphemism made me want to laugh hysterically. They'd brought in a professional manipulator. Someone who made their living destroying elderly people's autonomy. I gripped Richard's desk chair for support, my knuckles white as bone while vertigo threatened to send me crashing to the floor. Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor extended a manicured hand that I didn't take. Your son has shared his concerns about your recent behavior. I'm here to help everyone navigate this difficult period with dignity and grace. Dignity, grace. The words tasted like poison as I forced myself to remain standing despite legs that felt like melting wax. I wasn't aware I was experiencing a difficult period, I managed, my voice surprisingly steady even as my insides liquefied with terror. Ashley stepped forward, her phone already recording. I saw the subtle red light. Sarah, you collapsed yesterday. Twice. You've been talking to Richard's photographs, forgetting our names, leaving the stove on. That's not I started, but Eleanor smoothly interrupted. It's quite common for individuals experiencing cognitive decline to have no awareness of their symptoms, she said with practiced sympathy that made me want to scream. Denial is actually one of the key indicators we look for. The trap was so perfectly constructed that fighting it would only make me look worse. Every protest would be seen as confusion, every defense as paranoia. My chest tightened painfully, each breath becoming a monumental struggle as panic clawed at my throat. The room began to spin, and I had to lock my knees to keep from falling. I need to sit, I whispered, sinking into Richard's chair before my body completely betrayed me. See? Michael said to Eleanor, as if I'd just proved his point. This is happening more frequently. Yesterday, she couldn't even make it up the stairs without help. The lies came so easily to him, rolled off his tongue like he'd been practicing them in a mirror. This stranger, this monster wearing my son's face, had probably rehearsed this entire scene with Ashley, choreographing my destruction like a Broadway production. Eleanor pulled out an iPad, her fingers flying across the screen. Mrs. Sterling, I'd like to ask you a few simple questions. Just to establish a baseline. What year is it? 2024, I answered, fury beginning to burn through the fear. And who is the current president? The questions continued insulting in their simplicity, designed to make me look pathetic. Date of birth, my address, Richard's middle name. I answered them all correctly while Ashley continued filming, occasionally shaking her head sadly as if witnessing a tragedy. Now, Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor's tone shifted, becoming harder. Can you explain why you've liquidated over $3 million from your retirement accounts over the past 3 years? There it was the real purpose. Not concern for my health, but documentation of my financial decisions. My stomach lurched violently, bile rising in my throat as I realized how thoroughly they'd investigated my accounts. They knew everything except about Zurich, thank God. I've been supporting my son and daughter-in-law, I said clearly, looking directly at Ashley's phone camera. Paying their rent of $4,500 monthly, covering their car payments, their credit cards, their medical bills, their— Mom's confused again, Michael interrupted quickly. We've never asked her for money. She insists on giving us gifts, and we've tried to refuse, but she gets agitated when we don't accept them. The gaslighting was so brazen, so complete, that for a moment I questioned my own memory. Had I forced money on them? No, I had the texts, the emails, the desperate late-night calls about emergencies. But did I have them with me? Of course not. They'd planned this ambush perfectly. Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor continued, your son tells me you've been making large cash withdrawals. Can you account for that money? Every penny went to them. I gestured at Michael and Ashley, my hand shaking so violently I had to pull it back. She's been hiding cash around the house, Ashley chimed in with fake concern. We found $10,000 stuffed in a shoebox last week. Classic dementia behavior, hoarding money and then forgetting where it came from. Another lie. There was no shoebox, no hidden cash. But Eleanor nodded knowingly, typing notes that would undoubtedly appear in some competency hearing. My vision blurred with tears of pure rage, and I had to bite my tongue hard enough to taste blood to keep from screaming the truth. I think we should discuss the Beacon Hill property, Eleanor said, her predator's eyes gleaming. A house this size is dangerous for someone in your condition. There have been several incidents. What incidents? I demanded, my composure finally cracking. "The fall last month," Michael said smoothly. "When you broke the bathroom mirror and cut your hand. The kitchen fire when you left the burner on. The time you got lost driving home from the grocery store and Mrs. Patterson had to bring you back. None of it had happened. Not a single word was true, but I could see Eleanor documenting everything, building a case that would paint me as a danger to myself. The kitchen fire would have triggered the smoke alarms. Richard had installed a state-of-the-art system. The broken mirror would have required repairs. I had all my receipts. Mrs. Patterson had been in Florida for the past 3 months. I'd been collecting her mail. But proving any of that would require time, lawyers, a fight I wasn't sure I had the strength for. My body was shutting down from stress, black spots dancing at the edges of my vision as my blood pressure skyrocketed. I could feel my heart stuttering, skipping beats in a rhythm that screamed danger. "We've found a wonderful facility," Ashley said, producing a glossy brochure from her designer handbag. "Sunrise Manor has an opening in their memory care unit. It's very exclusive, very comfortable. They have art therapy, music programs, even a chapel for Sunday services. Memory care unit. A locked ward where they'd drug me into compliance while liquidating every asset Richard and I had built." The brochure showed smiling elderly people in wheelchairs, but all I could see were prisoners in a gold-plated cage. "The birthday party on Tuesday will be the perfect opportunity," Eleanor said to Michael, as if I wasn't sitting right there. "With that many witnesses to her confusion, we can file for emergency guardianship by Wednesday. The house can be listed by the weekend." They were discussing my life, my future, my imprisonment as casually as planning a dinner menu. The child I'd carried for 9 months, whose first word had been mama, whose scraped knees I'd kissed better 1,000 times, was orchestrating my destruction with the efficiency of a Nazi bureaucrat. "I won't go," I said quietly, finding strength in absolute refusal. "This is my home, Richard's home. You can't force me to leave." Eleanor's smile was pure ice. "Actually, Mrs. Sterling, once guardianship is established, your son will have full authority to make residential decisions in your best interest. Fighting it will only make the transition harder on everyone." The threat was clear: comply or be forcibly removed, surrender or be destroyed. As they continued planning my funeral while I still breathed, I thought of the Zurich account, of Amanda Chen's business card hidden in my jewelry box, of the recording app on my own phone that had been running since Eleanor walked in. They thought they'd won. But I'd learned something from Richard's chess games. Sometimes the best move is to let your opponent think they're winning while you quietly position your pieces for checkmate. "I'm very tired," I whispered. And this time it wasn't a lie. "Could we continue this discussion later?" "Of course, Mom," Michael said with mock concern. "Rest up for your party. It's going to be unforgettable." Unforgettable, yes it would be, just not in the way they planned. After they finally left my study, I waited until I heard their footsteps descend to the guest suite before allowing my body to collapse completely. The Persian rug Richard had bought on our anniversary trip to Istanbul cushioned my fall as I crumbled to the floor, my entire body convulsing with silent sobs that tore through me like lightning. I pressed my face into the wool fibers, muffling the animal sounds of anguish that escaped, despite my best efforts. 20 minutes. That's how long I lay there, feeling my heart skip and race in dangerous patterns while cold sweat soaked through my silk blouse. When I finally pulled myself up, using Richard's desk like a mountain climber uses rope, I knew what I had to do. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold my phone as I scrolled through my contacts. There, Margaret Wilson, my friend from book club whose daughter Jennifer worked at Preston Financial, the investment firm Michael claimed to have consulted about the tech startup opportunity. It was 10 at night, but this couldn't wait. "Sarah?" Margaret's voice was concerned. "Honey, it's late. Is everything all right?" "Margaret, I need Jennifer's number. It's urgent." My voice sounded foreign, hollow, broken, aged a decade in a single day. Without asking questions, Margaret gave me the number. Jennifer answered on the 3rd ring, and what she told me sent me rushing to the bathroom again, dry heaving over the toilet until my ribs ached from the violence of it. "Mrs. Sterling, no legitimate tech startup asks for $200,000 in cash up front. That's a classic scam. Has someone approached Michael with this? He should know better. He has a law degree, doesn't he?" He knew better. Of course he knew better. This wasn't ignorance. It was deliberate fraud. They were creating a paper trail to show I was throwing money at obvious scams, further evidence of my supposed mental decline. I managed to thank Jennifer and end the call before the room started spinning again. Gripping the bathroom counter, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, hollow cheeks, dark circles like bruises under my eyes, skin gray as ash. I looked like I'd aged 10 years in 2 days. Maybe that was their plan, stress me into an actual heart attack or stroke, making their job even easier. No, I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I stumbled to my bedroom, each step an effort as my body fought against the trauma of betrayal. The vanity where I'd applied makeup for 40 years held my salvation, the jewelry box Richard had given me for our first anniversary, its secret compartment known only to me. Amanda Chen's business card was there, along with something else I'd hidden. A small digital recorder I'd bought months ago when I first sensed something was wrong but couldn't name it. My fingers fumbled with my phone as I dialed Amanda's after-hours number. She answered immediately, her voice sharp and professional despite the late hour. "Mrs. Sterling, this is unexpected. Are you safe?" "No," I whispered, the admission making everything real. "My son is trying to have me declared incompetent. They brought in a specialist today, Eleanor Blackwood. They're planning something at my birthday party on Tuesday." "Eleanor Blackwood," Amanda's voice turned to steel. "I know her reputation. She's been involved in 3 cases. I've fought all elderly people who mysteriously signed over power of attorney days before being institutionalized. Mrs. Sterling, we need to meet first thing tomorrow. Can you get to my office?" "They're watching me," I said, remembering Ashley's camera. "They're documenting everything as evidence of confusion." "Then I'll come to you. Is there somewhere safe we can meet? Somewhere they won't expect?" I thought of the one place Michael never went anymore, Mount Auburn Cemetery, where Richard was buried. Mount Auburn Cemetery, 10 tomorrow morning. Richard's grave is in section 15, near the chapel. "I'll be there. And Mrs. Sterling, don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. If they try to force any documents on you, call 911 and report elder abuse. Create a scene if you have to." After ending the call, I crept back to Richard's study, my body moving like I'd aged 30 years overnight. The laptop screen hurt my eyes, but I forced myself to research. Eleanor Blackwood's name appeared in article after article. Elderly woman loses estate to guardianship, family transition specialist under investigation, questions raised about nursing home admissions. Every story followed the same pattern: concerned family, professional evaluation, quick guardianship proceedings, and elderly parents vanishing into memory care facilities while their estates were liquidated. One woman, Helen Martinez, had managed to escape after 2 years and testified that she'd been kept sedated while her daughter sold everything she owned. The daughter had worked with Eleanor Blackwood. My hands shook as I opened my banking app, taking screenshots of every transaction, every transfer to Michael and Ashley over the past 3 years. $3,200,000. The number stared back at me like an accusation. How could I have been so blind? How could maternal love have made me so stupidly, dangerously naive? A door slammed downstairs. My heart lurched, and I quickly closed the laptop, grabbing a book to pretend I'd been reading. Footsteps on the stairs, Ashley's light tread. She knocked on the study door. "Sarah?" I saw the light. "Can't sleep?" I opened the door, schooling my face into blank confusion. "Ashley, is that you, dear? I was just looking for my reading glasses." Her eyes lit up with satisfaction, and I saw her hand move subtly to her phone, probably hitting record again. "Your glasses are on your head, Sarah." I reached up, pretending surprise at finding them there. "Oh, silly me. I've been so forgetful lately." "That's why we're worried about you," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Michael and I just want what's best for you. You know that, right?" "Of course, dear," I replied, letting my voice waver slightly. "You've both been so good to me." The lie tasted like acid, but her smile told me she'd bought it completely. After she left, I stood at the window, watching clouds drift across the moon. Richard's cemetery would be cold tomorrow, but at least there I could speak freely, plan my defense without wondering if every word was being recorded and twisted. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Eleanor Blackwood. I've scheduled your comprehensive evaluation for Tuesday at 2, immediately following your birthday luncheon. Your son has provided extensive documentation of concerning behaviors. I recommend you prepare yourself for transition. If this part touched something deep inside you, Hit that like button so I know it reached you. Do you see your own reflection in this character's journey? Tell me in the comments your story might just inspire someone else. Prepare yourself for transition, like I was already dead, just refusing to lie down in my grave. But Eleanor Blackwood had made one miscalculation. She'd given me her number, evidence of collusion before any official evaluation. I screenshot the message, forwarded it to Amanda, then added my own reply. I do not consent to any evaluation. Any attempt to force one will be considered assault. Let them document that. As dawn approached, painting the sky the color of old blood, I sat at Richard's desk writing everything down in longhand: dates, amounts, conversations, lies. If something happened to me, if they somehow succeeded in locking me away, at least there would be a record. I sealed it in an envelope addressed to Amanda Chen and hid it in Richard's first edition Hemingway, the one book Michael had never shown interest in, despite its $20,000 value. Tuesday was 3 days away. 3 days to gather evidence, protect my assets, and figure out how to survive the public execution my son had planned. The son I'd loved more than life itself now wanted me erased from existence, reduced to a line item in his bank account. But I was Sarah Sterling, widow of Richard Sterling, survivor of 73 years of life's trials. I'd buried my husband, raised my son alone, built a life from ashes. I wouldn't go quietly into their manufactured darkness. The war was coming, and this time, maternal love wouldn't blind me to the enemy's face, even if that face belonged to my only child. Mount Auburn Cemetery stood shrouded in morning mist as I made my way to Richard's grave, my cane a prop I'd started using to maintain my frail, elderly woman facade, clicking against the stone path. Amanda Chen was already there, a commanding presence in her navy suit despite being barely 5 feet tall. Her eyes, sharp as surgical instruments, took in my appearance with professional assessment. "Mrs. Sterling, you look like you haven't slept in days," she said without preamble, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd fought this battle before. 3 nights, I admitted, sinking onto the stone bench near Richard's headstone. Every time I close my eyes, I see Michael's face morphing from my baby boy to this monster planning my destruction. Amanda sat beside me, pulling out a legal pad. "Tell me everything, don't leave out a single detail." For the next hour, I poured out the whole sordid truth, the overheard conversations, the $3 million drained over 3 years, Eleanor Blackwood's involvement, the planned ambush at my birthday party. Amanda's expression grew increasingly grim as she took notes in shorthand. "Mrs. Sterling, what I'm about to tell you might be hard to hear," she said when I finished. "This isn't Michael's first attempt at this kind of fraud." The cemetery seemed to tilt around me. "What do you mean?" "I did some research after your call. Your son and Ashley have done this before, not with family, but with elderly clients at the law firm where Michael briefly worked 5 years ago. 3 separate elderly clients reported suspicious activity after Michael handled their estate planning. The firm quietly let him go rather than face scandal." My stomach lurched violently. I gripped the bench as waves of nausea crashed over me. "He's done this before? To other people's parents?" "The pattern is identical: emotional manipulation, false medical documentation, and a transition specialist, though it wasn't Eleanor Blackwood then. They've refined their technique." I thought I'd experienced the depths of betrayal, but this revelation shattered something fundamental inside me. My son wasn't just greedy, he was a predator who specialized in destroying the elderly. The apple of my eye was rotten to the core. "There's more," Amanda continued gently. "I had my investigator look into Ashley's background. Her real name isn't Ashley Sterling, it's Ashley Kovac. She has 2 previous marriages, both to older men with substantial estates. Both men died within 3 years of marriage under questionable circumstances." The blood drained from my face so fast I nearly fainted. "She's a black widow?" "We can't prove murder, but the pattern is suspicious. Both men were declared incompetent shortly before their deaths, with Ashley as their guardian." I stumbled off the bench, falling to my knees beside Richard's grave, my fingers clutching at the cold granite as the world spun violently around me. This wasn't just about money. My life was potentially in danger. The son I devoted everything to had married a possible murderer and brought her into my home. "Mrs. Sterling, we need to act fast," Amanda said, helping me back to the bench. "But I have good news too. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office has been investigating Eleanor Blackwood for 18 months. Your case could be the one that finally brings her down and your son and Ashley with her. The Attorney General? I whispered, hope flickering through the darkness. I've already made contact. Agent Patricia Reeves wants to meet with you today. She's been tracking a ring of people who target the elderly. Eleanor is suspected of being a key player. With your cooperation, they could arrest all three at your birthday party. The irony was almost beautiful. The party meant to be my public humiliation would become their downfall. But first, I had to survive until Tuesday, had to play the role of confused old woman while gathering evidence for the FBI. There's something else, I said, remembering the Zurich account. Richard left money they don't know about, 18 million in Switzerland. Amanda's eyes widened. That changes everything. We can protect those assets immediately, put them in an irrevocable trust that no guardianship can touch. But Mrs. Sterling, you need to know if we do this. If we work with the Attorney General, your son will likely go to prison. Are you prepared for that? Prison. My baby boy in prison. The child I'd carried, nursed, raised with such love and hope, but that child was gone, maybe had never really existed outside my desperate imagination. What remained was a predator wearing Michael's face. He's already dead to me, I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in days. The son I loved wouldn't do this. Whoever this Michael is, he deserves whatever justice brings. Amanda squeezed my hand. You're incredibly brave. Most parents can't make that choice. Most parents aren't facing a son who's planning to bury them alive, I replied bitterly. We arranged to meet Agent Reeves that afternoon at Amanda's office. As I stood to leave, I placed my hand on Richard's headstone, drawing strength from the cold marble. I'm going to fight, my love, I whispered. I'm going to win. And then I'm going to use our money to help other victims like me. It's what you would want. The drive home was torture. Knowing I had to face Michael and Ashley, had to pretend ignorance while they plotted my destruction, made every mile feel like a march to the gallows. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw a new car, a Tesla, probably $90,000. They'd already spent money they didn't have, confident in their coming windfall. Inside, I found them in my living room with two more accomplices, a man in medical scrubs who had to be Dr. Harrison, and a younger woman with predatory eyes taking photos of my home with professional equipment. Mom, Michael jumped up with false enthusiasm. Perfect timing. This is Dr. Harrison, who'll be helping with your evaluation, and Rebecca from Coldwell Banker. She's doing a preliminary assessment of the house value. A real estate agent. They were already planning to sell my home, Richard's home, before they even had guardianship. The rage that flooded through me was so intense I had to grip my cane to keep from striking someone. How thoughtful, I managed, my voice hollow. Though I'm not planning to move. Oh, Mom, Ashley said with that condescending tone that made me want to scream. That's what you say now, but Sunrise Manor is so much more appropriate for someone in your condition. Maintaining this big house is just too much for you. Dr. Harrison approached with a medical bag, his smile as false as a $3 bill. Mrs. Sterling, would you mind if I took your blood pressure? Just a routine check. I submitted to his examination, knowing refusal would be documented as uncooperative behavior. His hands were cold, clinical, touching me like I was already a corpse. My blood pressure was obviously elevated. Who wouldn't be hypertensive when surrounded by vultures? 170/95, he announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. That's concerning, especially at your age. Are you taking your medications? What medications? I asked, genuinely confused. She often forgets, Michael interjected quickly. We find pills hidden all over the house. More lies for their documentation. I wanted to scream that I took no medications, that my only prescription was vitamins, but I knew they'd twist any protest into evidence of confusion. Rebecca, the real estate agent, was openly calculating square footage on her tablet. This could easily list for $4.5 million, she told Ashley, not even pretending to whisper. More if we stage it properly. They were dividing my corpse while I still breathed. But in my pocket, my phone was recording everything evidence that would bury them all. I'm tired, I said, playing the frail card. I need to rest. Of course, Mom, Michael said with mock concern. Rest up for Tuesday. Your party is going to change everything. Yes, it would. Just not how we planned. In 3 days, the hunter would become the hunted, and my son would learn that mothers could be predators too when defending themselves from their own young. Amanda Chen's downtown office occupied the 40th floor of a glass tower, a fortress of legal protection high above Boston's chaotic streets. Agent Patricia Reeves from the Attorney General's office was already there when I arrived, a woman in her 40s with eyes that had seen too much corruption to be surprised by anything anymore. "Mrs. Sterling," Agent Reeves said, her handshake firm and reassuring. "I've reviewed the preliminary information Miss Chen provided. Your son and daughter-in-law fit the pattern we've been tracking for 2 years. You're not their first victim, but with your help, you'll be their last." The validation should have felt like vindication, but instead it hammered home the horrifying reality. My son was a serial predator of the elderly. I sank into the leather chair, my body feeling every one of my 73 years as the weight of this truth crushed down on me. "We've been building a case against Eleanor Blackwood's network," Agent Reeves continued, spreading files across the conference table. 17 elderly victims in Massachusetts alone, stripped of over $40 million in assets. 3 died within months of being institutionalized suspicious circumstances, but nothing we could prove. Until now. She pulled out a photograph that made my blood freeze. It was Ashley at what appeared to be a funeral, standing beside an elderly man I didn't recognize. Another photo. Ashley in a wedding dress next to a different elderly man. A third. Ashley signing documents while an elderly woman in a wheelchair looked on with vacant eyes. "Your daughter-in-law has quite a history," Agent Reeves said grimly. "We've linked her to 5 separate cases of elder fraud across 3 states. She changes her last name with each marriage, but the pattern is consistent. Marry in, isolate the victim, declare them incompetent, liquidate assets." My stomach churned violently. I'd welcomed this woman into my home, called her daughter, given her hundreds of thousands of dollars. How did Michael meet her? "We believe Eleanor Blackwood introduced them. She runs a sort of matchmaking service for predators, connecting people like Ashley with accomplices like your son, who have access to wealthy elderly relatives." The room spun around me. This wasn't a marriage, it was a business arrangement, with my destruction as the business plan. My chest constricted painfully, each breath a struggle as I processed the scope of this conspiracy. "Mrs. Sterling needs protection," Amanda interjected firmly. "If they suspect she knows." "We're prepared to place an undercover agent in the house," Agent Reeves said, someone posing as a home health aide. "But Mrs. Sterling, you'll need to play along until Tuesday. Can you do that? Pretend you don't know while we gather final evidence? You've made it this far, go ahead and hit like to let me know you're still with me. You know, every share you make might help someone out there find a little hope. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe because who knows, the next story might just touch your heart." 3 more days of looking at Michael's face, hearing Ashley's condescending voice, knowing they were planning my imprisonment or worse. The thought made me physically ill, but what choice did I have? "I've been pretending my son loved me for 3 years," I said bitterly. "What's 3 more days?" Agent Reeves pulled out a small device. "This is a recording device disguised as a hearing aid. Wear it at all times. Everything they say will be transmitted directly to our surveillance team. At the party, we'll have agents posing as guests. The moment they try to force you to sign anything or have Dr. Harrison make his false diagnosis, we'll move in." "What about the Zurich account?" I asked Amanda. "I've already contacted Swiss banking authorities. The funds are being transferred to an irrevocable trust as we speak. No matter what happens, they can't touch that money. $18 million safe. It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was hollow. What good was money when the child you'd loved unconditionally saw you as nothing but a bank account with a pulse?" "There's something else," Agent Reeves said, her tone gentler. "We found Sarah Mitchell." My heart stopped. Sarah from my book club? But she's in Sunrise Manor, being held against her will. Her daughter used the same playbook, Eleanor Blackwood, false medical evaluation, forced institutionalization. Sarah's been drugged for 6 months to keep her compliant, but she's cognizant enough to testify. We're getting a court order to remove her today. Sarah was alive. Drugged, imprisoned, but alive. That could have been me in 3 days, would have been me if I hadn't overheard that late-night conversation. "Mrs. Sterling," Agent Reeves leaned forward. "I need to ask something difficult. Would you be willing to wear a wire at the party? Get Michael or Ashley to confess on tape? You want me to interrogate my own son?" I want you to save yourself and 17 other victims, she replied bluntly. Your son made his choice when he conspired to destroy you. Now you need to make yours. The meeting continued for 2 more hours, going over the plan in meticulous detail. I would return home, continue playing the confused elderly woman, while the FBI prepared their trap. The birthday party Michael planned as my public humiliation would become his arrest. As I drove home, the fake hearing aid transmitting every sound, I thought about the Michael I'd raised versus the Michael I now knew. When had my sweet boy transformed into this monster? Or had the monster always been there, waiting behind the mask of filial affection? The house felt different when I returned, no longer a home but a stage for the final act of this family tragedy. Michael and Ashley were in the kitchen, and I heard them through the device clearer than ever. 3 more days, Ashley was saying. Then we'll never have to pretend to care about the old bag again. Sometimes I can barely stand to look at her, Michael replied. The way she stares at me with those pathetic eyes, like she actually believes I love her. It's nauseating. Each word was a dagger, but also evidence. Let them talk. Let them hang themselves with their own cruelty. I entered the kitchen, shuffling slightly, playing my role. Oh, Michael, you're home. Would you like some lunch, sweetheart? The transformation was instant. His sneer morphed into a concerned smile. Mom, you already made lunch. Don't you remember? You're repeating yourself again. We hadn't eaten lunch. It was only 11 in the morning. But I played along, letting confusion cloud my features. Did I? Oh dear, I'm sorry. Ashley exchanged a meaningful look with Michael. This is exactly what Dr. Harrison was talking about. The confusion is getting worse. Maybe we should move the party earlier, Michael suggested, before she deteriorates further. No, I said too quickly, then covered. I've been looking forward to it. Please don't change it. They exchanged another look, satisfaction this time. The mouse was begging to walk into the trap. Of course, Mom, Michael said with false warmth. Tuesday it is. It's going to be a birthday you'll never forget. No, I thought, feeling the wire recording every word. It's going to be a birthday you'll never forget. 3 more days. 72 hours until the son who'd become a stranger would learn that mothers could be dangerous too, especially when cornered, especially when fighting for their lives, especially when they had the FBI on their side. The countdown to Tuesday had begun, and only one of us would emerge victorious. I'd given Michael life 73 years ago. Now, I would give him something else justice. Saturday morning arrived with a registered letter that would change everything. I'd been awake since 4, unable to eat, managing only small sips of water to keep the antacid down. My body had begun shutting down from the stress. I'd lost 8 pounds in 4 days. My hands trembled constantly, and my reflection showed a ghost wearing my face. The doorbell rang at 9 sharp. Michael was still asleep. Predators rarely rose before noon, but Ashley answered, her voice carrying through the house with false sweetness. Oh, a registered letter for Sarah? I'll sign for it. Ma'am, I need Mrs. Sterling herself. It requires personal signature and identification. I shuffled to the door, playing my role while the wire recorded everything. The courier, a young man with kind eyes, handed me an envelope marked with Swiss banking seals and confidential recipient only in red letters. What's that? Ashley demanded, trying to peer over my shoulder. I don't know, dear. Probably something about Richard's old accounts. I tucked it against my chest, feeling Ashley's predatory gaze burning into my back. You should let Michael review it, she said, reaching for the envelope. Legal documents can be so confusing at your age. Later, I said, shuffling toward the stairs. I need my reading glasses. In the safety of my bathroom with the water running, I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The letterhead made my knees buckle. Estate of James Mitchell, Sterling final distribution notice. James, my estranged brother who disappeared to Switzerland 40 years ago after a fight with our father. We'd exchanged Christmas cards, but nothing more, both too proud to bridge the gap our father's will had created. And now, in death, he was saving me from my own son. The amount made me sink onto the closed toilet seat, 42 million Swiss francs, approximately $45 million. Combined with Richard's Zurich account, I now had over $60 million Michael knew nothing about. But there was more. James had left a letter. Sarah, I know we wasted decades on stupid pride. I followed your life from afar, the loss of Richard, your devotion to Michael. I also hired investigators when I sensed something wrong 3 years ago. Your son has been stealing from you, sister. The evidence is in a safety deposit box at Credit Suisse, Bahnhofstrasse 12, Zurich. Use it wisely. Don't let them destroy you like father nearly destroyed us. Your stubborn fool of a brother, James. He'd known. From across an ocean, my brother had seen what I'd been too blinded by love to recognize. Tears streamed down my face, grief for James, for the reconciliation we'd never have, but also relief. He'd given me the ultimate weapon, financial independence they couldn't touch. A pounding on the door made me jump. "Sarah, are you all right in there?" Michael's voice, impatient and calculating. I flushed the toilet, folded the letter into my undergarments, and opened the door. "Just some stomach troubles, dear." He stared at the envelope in my hand. "What's that?" "Oh, some insurance forms about Richard's old policies. Nothing important." His eyes narrowed. I could see him calculating, wondering if there was money he didn't know about. "Let me look at them." "You know how confused you get with financial documents." "Already filed them away," I lied, my heart hammering so hard I thought he must hear it, in Richard's old filing cabinet. "I'll review them later," he said, and I knew he'd tear apart Richard's study the moment I left the house. Let him look. The real documents were hidden where he'd never think to search, tucked inside my old maternity clothes in the attic, the ones I'd saved from when I was pregnant with him. The irony wasn't lost on me. That afternoon, while Michael and Ashley attended what they claimed was a legal consultation but was obviously another plotting session with Eleanor Blackwood, I met Amanda Chen at a small cafe in Cambridge. $60 million, she breathed when I showed her the documentation. "Mrs. Sterling, this changes our entire strategy. With this kind of wealth protected in Switzerland, you're untouchable. Even if they somehow succeeded with guardianship, they couldn't access foreign accounts without your cooperation." "Or without me dead," I said bluntly. Amanda's face darkened. "That's why the FBI protection is crucial. Agent Reeves has uncovered something else. Ashley's first husband died from digitalis poisoning. It was ruled accidental, but digitalis comes from foxglove plants, which Ashley grew in her garden." My blood turned to ice. "There are foxgloves in my garden. Ashley planted them last spring, said they were beautiful." "Don't eat or drink anything they prepare," Amanda warned urgently. "The FBI agent posing as a health aide starts tomorrow. She'll be doing all your meal preparation." As I drove home, I noticed a black sedan following 3 cars behind FBI surveillance, protecting me from my own family. The bitter irony made me want to laugh and cry simultaneously. Back at the house, I found chaos. Michael had indeed ransacked Richard's study, papers strewn everywhere, drawers pulled out, even the leather chairs slashed open. "Mom!" He spun around, his face flushed with rage. "Where are the insurance documents? What have you done?" I gasped, genuine shock making my performance convincing. "Richard's study." "You destroyed it." "The documents?" he shouted, grabbing my shoulders hard enough to bruise. "The Swiss documents? Where are they?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I whimpered, letting tears fall. "You're hurting me, Michael." Ashley appeared in the doorway, her expression cold. "She's hidden something." The courier confirmed it was from Switzerland. They knew about the money. Not the amount, but they knew something had arrived from Switzerland. The game had just become deadlier. "Mom," Michael's voice turned silky, dangerous. "If you're hiding assets, that's fraud. Elderly people who commit fraud go to special facilities, locked wards where they're kept for their own protection." The threat was clear: cooperate or be imprisoned in a psychiatric facility. But I had my own ammunition now. "Like Sarah Mitchell?" I asked innocently. Both of them froze. "How do you know about Sarah?" Ashley demanded. "She was my friend, from book club. Before she got sick." I let my voice waver, playing the confused elder perfectly while the wire captured their reaction. "Sarah Mitchell is very ill," Michael said carefully. "She needs professional care." "Is that what I need too?" I asked, looking directly at him. "Professional care?" For a moment his mask slipped completely, and I saw the real Michael, cold, calculating, utterly without love or conscience. "That depends entirely on you, Mother." The word mother from his lips felt like profanity. But I had what I needed: recorded threats, evidence of coercion, proof of their conspiracy. "I'm very tired," I whispered, shuffling toward the door. "My party is in 2 days. I just want it to be nice." "Oh, it will be," Ashley said with a smile that would haunt my nightmares. It will be unforgettable. As I climbed the stairs, gripping the banister with white knuckles, I heard Michael on the phone. Eleanor? We have a problem. There's Swiss money we didn't know about. We need to accelerate the timeline. 2 days. 48 hours until the trap would spring. But now they were desperate, and desperate predators were the most dangerous kind. Sunday morning brought a new revelation that shifted everything. The undercover FBI agent arrived at 7, posing as Maria Santos, a home health aide from a reputable agency. She was in her 30s, with kind eyes that held steel beneath the warmth a warrior disguised as a caregiver. Mrs. Sterling, she said as Michael and Ashley watched suspiciously from the doorway, I'll be preparing all your meals and medications from now on. Doctor's orders. The emphasis on doctor's orders was subtle but clear. She knew about the poisoning risk. This is unnecessary, Ashley protested, her face flushing. I've been taking excellent care of Sarah. I'm sure you have, ma'am, Maria replied smoothly, but given Mrs. Sterling's age and recent health concerns, professional care is required. Unless you'd like to explain to Adult Protective Services why you refused medical assistance? The threat of APS made Ashley back down, but I saw her exchange a venomous look with Michael. They hadn't expected this complication. As Maria helped me to the kitchen, ostensibly to discuss meal planning, she whispered, Agent Reeves has news. Can you get to your bedroom alone in an hour? I nodded slightly, my heart racing. What had they discovered now? An hour later, in the privacy of my bedroom with Maria standing guard, I opened my laptop to find an encrypted email from Agent Reeves. The contents made me gasp audibly. Mrs. Sterling, urgent development. Our investigation has uncovered that Michael and Ashley purchased a property in Miami 6 months ago using a shell company. The down payment of $800,000 came from accounts linked to your funds. They've been planning to flee there after your institutionalization. The property is currently listed on luxury rental sites, generating $15,000 monthly. They've stolen more than we realized. Miami. They'd bought a house in Miami with my money while I'd been eating beans and rice to afford their emergencies. The laptop slipped from my numb fingers as the room spun violently. Maria caught me before I hit the floor. Breathe, Mrs. Sterling. Deep breaths. But I couldn't breathe. They'd been systematically robbing me while planning their escape to Florida. The premeditation, the calculated cruelty, it was beyond comprehension. My son had become something inhuman. There's more, Maria said gently, handing me a glass of water with a straw. We've been monitoring their communications. They've booked flights to Miami for Tuesday night, right after your party. They plan to leave immediately after you're taken to Sunrise Manor. Tuesday night. They wouldn't even stay to see me locked away, just collect their prize and run to their stolen paradise. A knock rattled my door. Mom? Is everything okay? Michael's voice, thick with false concern. Just helping Mrs. Sterling with her compression stockings, Maria called out professionally. We'll be out shortly. I want to see the Miami property, I whispered to Maria. Can Agent Reeves get me photos? Within minutes, my laptop displayed the house my money had bought, a $4 million waterfront estate with a private dock, infinity pool, and marble everything. The rental listing brazenly advertised it as Paradise Found Your Dream Escape. My dream escape. Purchased with money I'd given them for medical emergencies, car repairs, debt consolidation. Every lie had funded their paradise while I'd worried about affording my own medications. Mrs. Sterling, Maria said urgently, you need to compose yourself. They're getting suspicious. I forced steel into my spine, wiped my tears, and shuffled out of my bedroom. Michael and Ashley were waiting in the hallway, vultures perched for the kill. Mom, we need to discuss Tuesday's arrangements, Michael said, steering me toward the living room where Eleanor Blackwood sat waiting like a spider in her web. Mrs. Sterling, Eleanor's voice oozed false professionalism. I've arranged for Sunrise Manor to have a room ready immediately following your birthday celebration. The transition will be seamless. Transition, I repeated numbly, letting them see what they wanted, a broken old woman. It's for the best, Ashley added, her hand on my shoulder feeling like ice through my silk blouse. The house is too much for you. We'll handle everything, the sale, the assets, all those confusing financial matters. What about my things? I asked weakly. Richard's belongings? Storage, Michael said dismissively. We'll keep what's important. Important. They meant valuable. Everything Richard and I had collected over 47 years reduced to its resale value. Eleanor produced a stack of documents. These are just preliminary papers, giving Michael temporary authority to handle immediate concerns while we formalize the guardianship. I should read them first, I said, reaching for the papers. Oh, Sarah, Ashley laughed, that tinkling false sound that made my skin crawl. You know how confused you get with legal language. That's why Michael's here to help. I won't sign anything without reading it, I insisted, my voice stronger. The room went cold. Eleanor's mask slipped, revealing the predator beneath. Mrs. Sterling, cooperation now will make Tuesday much easier. Resistance will only prove your mental decline. The threat was explicit. Comply or be forcibly declared incompetent. But I had my own weapons now, the wire recording every word, the FBI agent in my kitchen, the $60 million they'd never touch. I'll think about it, I whispered, playing for time. Tuesday, Mom, Michael said firmly. You'll sign on Tuesday, after we celebrate your birthday properly. As they left, discussing their plans as if I wasn't there, I heard Ashley mention something that made my blood freeze. Doctor, Harrison has the sedatives ready if she becomes agitated at the party. Sedatives. They planned to drug me in front of 200 witnesses, then claim I'd had some sort of breakdown, the perfect justification for immediate institutionalization. That evening, as Maria prepared dinner under Ashley's hostile supervision, I sat in Richard's destroyed study, surrounded by the remnants of our life together. His books lay scattered, their spines broken. Our photo albums were tossed aside like garbage. The painting we'd bought on our honeymoon in Venice had been pulled from the wall, presumably to check for a hidden safe. This wasn't just greed, it was desecration. They were erasing Richard's memory, our history, everything that made this house a home rather than just real estate. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda Chen. Judge approved emergency injunction protecting your assets. Whatever happens Tuesday, they can't touch your money without your conscious, uncoerced consent. One small victory, but would it be enough? They had Dr. Harrison ready with sedatives, Eleanor with her legal documents, and 200 witnesses prepared to watch my destruction. But I had something they didn't expect: the will to fight, and an FBI team ready to storm my own birthday party. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and my son would learn what happened when you cornered a mother protecting not just her money, but her dignity, her freedom, and her very life. Tomorrow would be Monday, the last day of preparation before the war, and I intended to win, even if victory meant watching my only son hauled away in handcuffs on my 74th birthday. Monday arrived like the calm before a hurricane. I woke at dawn, my body aching from another sleepless night, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. Today was preparation day, the last chance to gather evidence and position my pieces before tomorrow's battle. Maria was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, preparing breakfast while Ashley watched from the doorway like a prison guard. The tension was suffocating, each woman sizing up the other, predator recognizing predator. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling," Maria said warmly, loud enough for Ashley to hear. "I've prepared your medications and a light breakfast. Doctor's orders for tomorrow's celebration." "What medications?" Ashley demanded, stepping forward. "Sarah doesn't take any regular medications." "Dr. Morrison prescribed some vitamins and supplements," Maria lied smoothly, showing a bottle of harmless B12 vitamins for energy and cognitive support. I saw Ashley's jaw clench. "Dr. Morrison was my real physician, not the fraudulent Dr. Harrison. They couldn't challenge his prescriptions without revealing their fake medical documentation." After breakfast, Michael cornered me in the living room, his facade of concern paper thin. "Mom, about those Swiss documents, I really need to see them. As your son, I have a right to know about family finances." "Rights?" The word slipped out sharper than I intended. "What about my rights, Michael?" His eyes flashed dangerously. "Your rights? Mom, you're 73 years old, showing clear signs of dementia and making irrational financial decisions. Your rights are exactly what we decide they are." The mask had slipped completely. There was my son or the monster wearing his face, admitting his true intentions. The wire captured every damning word. "I need to rest," I said, standing shakily. "Tomorrow is a big day." "The biggest," he agreed with a smile that belonged on a shark. "Life-changing, you might say." In my bedroom, Maria helped me review the final details with Agent Reeves via encrypted phone. "We'll have 12 agents at the party," Reeves confirmed. 4 as guests, 3 as catering staff, 2 as parking valets, and 3 in a van outside. The moment they try to force you to sign anything or Dr. Harrison attempts to administer sedatives, we move. What if they drug my food before the party? I asked, remembering the foxglove in my garden. Maria will handle all your food tomorrow. She'll even taste everything first if necessary. We're not taking any chances. After the call, I did something I'd been dreading. I went through Michael's old room, searching for any trace of the son I'd loved. His childhood drawings, report cards, Little League trophies. Everything that proved he'd once been human, once been mine. In his closet, behind dusty yearbooks, I found a box I'd forgotten existed. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to me, never sent. I opened one dated 10 years ago. Mom, I hate what I'm becoming. The greed, the emptiness, the inability to feel anything real except want. You deserve better than a son who sees you as an ATM. But I don't know how to stop. It's like something broken inside me that can't be fixed. I'm sorry. My hands shook as I read letter after letter, confessions of a soul recognizing its own corruption, but unable or unwilling to change. He'd known what he was becoming and chosen it anyway. That was almost worse than if he'd been oblivious. Mrs. Sterling, Maria stood in the doorway. There's something you need to see. She led me to Richard's study where she'd set up a small surveillance device. On the screen was real-time footage from downstairs Michael and Ashley with Eleanor Blackwood and Dr. Harrison, planning tomorrow's ambush in my own living room. The sedative goes in her champagne during the toast, Dr. Harrison was saying. Within 10 minutes, she'll be confused and compliant. I'll declare her incompetent due to acute delirium, and we'll have her in the van before anyone questions it. What about the house staff? Eleanor asked. That health aide is a problem. I'll handle her, Ashley said coldly. A little something in her coffee should keep her occupied while we deal with Sarah. They planned to poison Maria, too. The FBI agent who was protecting me was also in danger. Don't worry, Maria whispered, seeing my horror. We expected this. I won't eat or drink anything tomorrow. Neither will you. We have our own supplies. The rest of the day passed in a surreal haze. I watched Michael and Ashley make final preparations for my destruction, confirming the guest list, arranging the catering, even selecting music for what they believed would be my funeral march. At one point, Ashley held up a dress, a pale pink monstrosity with ruffles that would make me look like a demented grandmother from a horror movie. This is perfect for Sarah tomorrow. She'll look so sweet and helpless. Costume design for my execution. They'd thought of everything except the possibility that their victim had fangs of her own. That evening, my last in this house as a free woman if their plan succeeded, I sat in Richard's chair one final time. Tomorrow would bring either liberation or imprisonment, justice or destruction. There was no middle ground. My phone buzzed with a message from Amanda Chen. Everything is in place. The Swiss accounts are protected. The FBI is ready. Trust documentation secured. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won the financial war. Now we fight for your freedom. Financial victory felt hollow when the true loss was my son's soul, but it was better than losing everything. As midnight approached, I heard Michael and Ashley making love in the guest room below, celebrating their anticipated victory, no doubt. The sounds that should have meant future grandchildren instead soundtracked the death of every maternal dream I'd ever harbored. I pulled out a piece of paper and wrote my own letter, one I would never send. My dearest Michael, tomorrow you will try to destroy me, and I will destroy you instead. The saddest part is that I will do it out of love, the love that demands justice even when it breaks my heart. You were my greatest joy and have become my deepest sorrow. I will mourn the son I thought I had for the rest of my days, but I will not let the stranger you've become bury me alive. May you find redemption in prison that you couldn't find in freedom. Forever your mother, despite everything. I sealed it in an envelope marked with his name and placed it in Richard's desk drawer. Someday, perhaps, he would read it and understand. Or perhaps not. Either way, I had said my goodbye. Tomorrow would bring 200 witnesses to a birthday party that would become a crime scene. The Sterling family would implode in spectacular fashion, and I would emerge either victorious or vanquished, but not victimized, never again victimized. The clock struck midnight. Tuesday had begun, my 74th birthday. The day I would either lose everything or finally break free from the prison of toxic love. Tuesday, October 18th, my 74th birthday dawned gray and ominous, as if nature itself knew what was coming. I hadn't slept at all, spending the night in Richard's chair, wearing the wire the FBI had given me, waiting for the war to begin. At 7 sharp, Maria arrived with Agent Reeves and the undercover team. They moved through my house with military precision, placing cameras, checking sight lines, preparing for every contingency. My beautiful Beacon Hill home had become a battleground. "Mrs. Sterling," Agent Reeves said quietly, "remember the signal. If you feel threatened at any point, drop your handkerchief. We'll move immediately." A handkerchief. Such a delicate gesture to trigger a SWAT response. I tucked the white linen into my sleeve, my lifeline embroidered with Richard's initials. Michael and Ashley emerged at 9, dressed impeccably, him in a Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary, her in an Oscar de la Renta dress I'd paid for last Christmas. They looked like successful young professionals, not the predators they truly were. "Happy birthday, Mom." Michael's enthusiasm was so fake it made my teeth hurt. He hugged me, and I forced myself not to recoil from his touch. "Ready for your big day?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, the double meaning lost on him. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom had been transformed into what Ashley called elegant sophistication crystal chandeliers, reflected in mirror-polished floors, white roses and golden ribbons everywhere, a string quartet tuning their instruments. It was beautiful and cold, like a gorgeous mausoleum. Guests began arriving at noon. I watched from my designated throne a high-backed chair that made me look small and frail as 200 people gathered to witness what they thought was a celebration. Friends from church, my book club, neighbors, even distant relatives who'd emerged from obscurity when they heard the Sterling family was hosting at the Ritz. Eleanor Blackwood circulated like a shark, introducing herself as a family friend while identifying the most influential witnesses. Dr. Harrison set up his medical bag at a side table, his sedatives ready. The real estate agent, Rebecca, took photos of every guest, evidence of my confusion when I couldn't remember all their names later. "Sarah, darling." My friend Patricia from the book club rushed over. "You look wonderful." I wanted to scream at her to run, to warn everyone that this was a trap, but I just smiled and played my part. Several guests, I noticed, seemed oddly stiff FBI agents in disguise. One waiter had the bearing of military special forces. The parking valet had an earpiece. At 12:30, Michael clinked a champagne glass, calling for attention. My heart began racing so hard I thought it might be visible through my dress, not the pink monstrosity Ashley had chosen, but a deep blue Chanel suit I'd hidden for this occasion. If I was going down, I'd go down looking like myself. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael began, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "thank you for joining us to celebrate my mother's 74th birthday." Polite applause. I saw Agent Reeves, dressed as a society matron, position herself near the exit. Maria stood by the kitchen door, ready to intervene if anyone approached my food or drink. "My mother," Michael continued, "has been the cornerstone of our family for decades. She raised me alone after my father's death, sacrificed everything for my success, and has always been there when we needed her." Truth twisted into manipulation. Every word was true, but delivered with an undertone that suggested past tense. She was wonderful, but now. "However," he said, and the room grew quiet. "Recent months have been challenging. Mom has been struggling with confusion, memory issues, and making some concerning decisions." Gasps rippled through the crowd. This wasn't a birthday speech, it was character assassination. I gripped my handkerchief but didn't drop it. Not yet. Ashley stepped forward with a champagne flute. "We wanted today to be perfect for Mom, but we also need your support as we navigate this difficult transition." Transition. There was that word again, their euphemism for imprisonment. Dr. Harrison approached with his own glass, raised toward me. "To Mrs. Sterling, may she find peace and proper care in her golden years." The threat was explicit now. I stood slowly, my legs shaking but my voice steady. "I'd like to say something." "Mom, you should rest," Michael started, but I cut him off. "It's my birthday. I believe I'm entitled to speak." The room held its breath as I took the microphone. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. 74 years, I began, looking directly at my son. I've lived through the death of my beloved husband, raised my son alone, and discovered that the people you love most can become strangers. Michael's face reddened. Ashley's hand moved to her phone, ready to record my confusion. 3 days ago, I continued, my voice growing stronger, I discovered something remarkable. My brother James, who I hadn't seen in 40 years, passed away in Switzerland. He left me everything $45 million that no one in this room knew existed. The ballroom erupted. Michael's face went white as paper. Ashley's phone clattered to the floor. If you find this part truly thought-provoking, go ahead and hit like to show your support. Do you feel the same way as the character in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But more importantly, I said, pulling out my phone, he left me evidence. You see, James had been watching, investigating why his sister was being drained of millions while living like a pauper. What he found was illuminating. I hit play on my phone, connected to the ballroom sound system. Michael's voice filled the room. The old bag won't know what hit her. Once Harrison sedates her and she signs the papers, we're home free. Chaos. Absolute chaos. That's not Michael started, but I played another recording. Ashley's voice this time. Your mother is pathetic. $3 million in 3 years. And she still thinks you love her. After tomorrow, we'll never have to see her face again. Eleanor Blackwood tried to flee, but found her path blocked by a waiter who looked suspiciously like law enforcement. Dr. Harrison grabbed his medical bag, but Maria intercepted him. There's more, I announced, my voice cutting through the pandemonium. Michael and Ashley bought a $4 million house in Miami with money stolen from me. They've been planning this for months, my imprisonment, my financial destruction, possibly my death. You're lying, Michael roared, lunging toward me. That's when I dropped the handkerchief. The transformation was instant. FBI agents shed their disguises, badges appearing as if by magic. FBI, nobody move. Agent Reeves stepped forward, her identification held high. Michael Sterling, Ashley Sterling, Eleanor Blackwood, and Dr. Harrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, and attempted kidnapping. The room exploded as guests scrambled backward, phones out, recording everything. Michael tried to run but was tackled by an agent dressed as a valet. Ashley screamed obscenities as she was handcuffed. Eleanor maintained her cold composure even as her rights were read. Dr. Harrison simply collapsed into a chair, defeated. Mom, Michael shouted as they dragged him past. How could you do this to me? I'm your son. I looked at him, really looked at him for the last time. My son died years ago. You're just the stranger wearing his face. As they led him away, I heard him screaming about the Swiss money, demanding his share, proving with every word that he'd never loved me at all. The ballroom emptied quickly, guests fleeing the crime scene my birthday had become. Soon, only Maria, Agent Reeves, and I remained among the ruins of the celebration. You did it, Agent Reeves said gently. You're free. Free. The word felt hollow. I'd won the war but lost my son, though perhaps I'd lost him long ago and was only now admitting it. Happy birthday to me. The silence in the ballroom after the arrests was deafening. Broken champagne glasses glittered on the marble floor like scattered diamonds. Abandoned plates of foie gras and caviar, all paid for with my stolen money, sat untouched on pristine tablecloths. The string quartet had fled, leaving their instruments behind like casualties of war. I stood at the microphone, my 74-year-old body trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion, facing the few remaining guests who were too shocked to leave. Patricia from book club, Martha from church, Robert and Linda Harrison, my neighbors of 20 years, all staring at me with a mixture of horror and pity. I suppose, I said into the microphone, my voice echoing in the vast space, this isn't quite the birthday celebration you expected. A nervous laugh rippled through the remaining crowd. Patricia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Sarah, my God, we had no idea. All these years. How could you? I replied, finally allowing my exhaustion to show. I didn't know myself until 5 days ago. I've been living in a carefully constructed delusion, believing my son loved me when he was systematically planning my destruction. Agent Reeves approached with a chair, practically forcing me to sit before I collapsed. Maria appeared with water sealed, safe water that hadn't been anywhere near my would-be poisoners. Mrs. Sterling, Agent Reeves addressed both me and the remaining witnesses. What you've seen today is the culmination of a 2-year federal investigation into elder fraud. The Sterling case is connected to 17 other families across Massachusetts who've suffered similar exploitation. Martha gasped. 17 families? How is this possible? It's more common than you'd think, Agent Reeves continued. Elder financial abuse costs seniors billions annually. Most cases go unreported because victims are too ashamed or too incapacitated to seek help. I thought of Sarah Mitchell, still recovering at a safe facility after 6 months of forced drugging. How many others were trapped in nursing homes, declared incompetent by corrupt doctors, their families stealing everything while they sat medicated into submission? What happens now? Robert Harrison asked, his arm protectively around his own elderly mother, who'd come as his +1. The defendants will be arraigned tomorrow, Agent Reeves explained. Given the evidence, the recordings, the fraudulent medical documents, the Miami property purchased with stolen funds, we expect significant prison sentences. Prison. My son would spend his best years behind bars. The child I'd nursed through chickenpox, taught to ride a bicycle, sent to Harvard, he would wear orange jumpsuits and eat off metal trays. The contradiction between maternal love and justice tore through me like a physical wound. Sarah Linda Harrison said softly, "What will you do?" For the first time in days, I actually thought about the future beyond surviving the next hour. I have $60 million my brother left me that they never knew about, I said, still amazed by the number. But what good is money when you've lost everything that matters? You haven't lost everything, Patricia interjected firmly. You've lost a son who was already gone. But you've gained freedom, dignity, and the chance to help others. Help others. The phrase resonated in my chest, warming something that had gone cold. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation, I said suddenly, the idea forming as I spoke. I'll create a foundation to protect elderly people from family exploitation, free legal services, safe housing, advocacy. For the first time in days, I felt something other than pain and betrayal, purpose. Richard would have loved this idea, taking our tragedy and transforming it into protection for others. My phone rang. Amanda Chen. I answered on speaker, too exhausted for privacy. Sarah, I'm at the courthouse. The emergency asset protection order was approved. The Miami house is being seized as proceeds of fraud. The $3 million they stole, will recover what we can through civil proceedings. I don't want it, I said immediately. Whatever you recover, put it toward the foundation. Silence. Then Amanda's voice, warm with admiration. You're remarkable, Sarah Sterling. Remarkable. I didn't feel remarkable. I felt hollowed out, grief-stricken, older than my 74 years. But maybe that was what remarkable looked like, continuing forward when everything inside you wanted to crumble. There's one more thing, Agent Reeves said carefully. We found letters in Michael's apartment. Letters to you he never sent, going back years. Would you want... Burn them, I said without hesitation. Whatever he wrote, whether confession or manipulation, I don't want to know. That Michael is dead to me. The remaining guests slowly dispersed, each stopping to squeeze my hand, offer support, promise to visit. Empty promises. Mostly people don't know how to handle this level of family tragedy. But their intentions were kind, and after years of calculated cruelty, even hollow kindness felt like water in the desert. As the ballroom emptied, I stood among the ruins of my birthday party, overturned chairs, abandoned food, wilting roses that would never make it into the photos Ashley had planned. This was supposed to be my public humiliation, my final appearance as a free woman before they locked me away. Instead, it had become my liberation day. Mrs. Sterling, Maria said gently, let's get you home. Home. The Beacon Hill house that Michael had already been planning to sell. The rooms he'd ransacked, the study he'd destroyed, the garden where Ashley had planted foxglove to poison me. Could it ever feel like home again? Actually, I said, surprising myself, I want to go to the cemetery first. I need to tell Richard what happened. The drive to Mount Auburn Cemetery was silent except for my occasional directions to Maria. The FBI security detail followed discreetly, apparently. I was now a protected witness until the trial. Protected from my own family. The irony was suffocating. At Richard's grave, I knelt on the cold ground, my arthritis screaming in protest, and placed my hand on his headstone. We lost him, Richard, I whispered. Our beautiful boy is gone. Maybe he was always gone and we just couldn't see it. I did what you would have done. I chose justice over enabling. But God, it hurts. It hurts more than your death, because at least you loved me until the end. The wind rustled through the ancient oaks, and for a moment, I could almost hear Richard's voice. "You did right, Sarah. You survived." Survived! Such a small word for such a monumental achievement. As we drove back to Beacon Hill, I saw the city with new eyes. Somewhere out there were other elderly parents being exploited by their children, other Michael and Ashley's plotting to declare their mothers incompetent, other Eleanor Blackwoods facilitating family destruction for profit. But also, somewhere out there was hope. The FBI was watching. Lawyers like Amanda Chen were fighting. And now, with my brother's fortune and my hard-won freedom, I could fight too. Tomorrow would bring arraignments, media attention, the complete implosion of the Sterling family name. But tonight, on my 74th birthday, I was free. Broken, grieving, but free. And that was enough. For now, that was everything. The arraignment was set for 9 the next morning at Suffolk County Superior Court. I hadn't slept, instead sitting in Richard's destroyed study, sorting through the scattered remnants of our life while processing what had happened. Every photograph felt like evidence of my blindness: Michael's Harvard graduation, his first day at the law firm, his 30th birthday party. In every image, I now saw what I'd missed: the calculating eyes, the forced smiles, the way he always positioned himself near whoever had the most money. At 7, Amanda Chen arrived with Agent Reeves and a revelation that shattered my world all over again. "Sarah, sit down," Amanda said, her face grave. "We've discovered something during the investigation, something about Michael's finances that you need to know." My heart, already broken, somehow found new ways to fracture. "What now?" Agent Reeves opened a file, spreading documents across the coffee table. 3 years ago, Ashley wasn't Michael's first attempt at this scheme. There was another woman, Jennifer Walsh, 68 years old, wealthy widow from Brookline. The room tilted. "What happened to her?" "She died," Agent Reeves said quietly. "Supposedly fell down her stairs 2 weeks after signing power of attorney over to Michael. He was representing her in estate planning. The death was ruled accidental, but now we're reopening the case. Murder. They were suggesting my son might be a murderer. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before my body expelled what little I'd managed to eat. Maria held my hair back as I sobbed and wretched, my body rejecting this final, unbearable truth. "There's more," Amanda said when I returned, shaking like a leaf. "We found Jennifer Walsh's journal in a safety deposit box. She wrote about feeling dizzy, disoriented, worried that her new lawyer Michael was drugging her. The symptoms matched digitalis poisoning. Foxglove. The same flowers Ashley had planted in my garden. They were going to kill me," I whispered, the reality crashing over me like ice water. My son was planning to murder me. "We can't prove it definitively," Agent Reeves cautioned, "but the pattern is clear. Jennifer Walsh's entire estate, $7 million, was liquidated within 6 months of her death. The money disappeared into offshore accounts we're still tracking. $7 million plus the $3 million they'd already stolen from me, plus whatever they would have gotten from selling my house, liquidating my assets. My son wasn't just a thief, he was a serial predator who possibly killed for money." The phone rang. It was the prosecutor, Marcus Hamilton, a man known for taking down organized crime families. "Mrs. Sterling, I need you to understand what we're dealing with. This isn't just elder abuse anymore. We're looking at potential murder charges, racketeering, conspiracy involving multiple states. Your son could face life in prison." Life in prison. The baby I'd carried for 9 months, whose first word was mama, whose fever I'd sat up with countless nights facing life behind bars. "I need you to testify," Hamilton continued. "Your testimony is crucial to establishing the pattern of behavior, the premeditation. Without you, they might walk." "I'll testify," I said without hesitation. Justice for Jennifer Walsh, for Sarah Mitchell, for all the unnamed victims demanded it. An hour later, we arrived at the courthouse, pushing through a media circus that had apparently been tipped off about the case. Reporters shouted questions. "Mrs. Sterling, how does it feel to turn in your own son? Did you know about the murder allegations? What will happen to your fortune?" Inside the courtroom, I saw them for the first time since yesterday's arrests. Michael in an orange jumpsuit, his Harvard polish replaced by stubble and desperation. Ashley beside him, her designer facade crumbled, revealing the predator beneath. Eleanor Blackwood maintained her composure, but her eyes darted nervously. "Dr. Harrison looked like he'd aged a decade overnight." "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Catherine Morrison, known for her harsh sentences in elder abuse cases, took her seat. The prosecutor laid out the charges: conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud, attempted kidnapping, and now, pending investigation into Jennifer Walsh's death, possible murder. The bail request was staggering: $5 million each for Michael and Ashley, $2 million for Eleanor, $1 million for Harrison. Michael's public defender, an overwhelmed young woman named Patricia Carr, tried to argue for lower bail. "Your Honor, my client has strong ties to the community." "Your client," Judge Morrison interrupted, "systematically planned to destroy his own mother while potentially being involved in the death of another elderly woman. Bail is set as requested." Then came the moment that changed everything. Ashley stood suddenly. "I want to make a deal." "Sit down," Michael hissed, but she pulled away from him. "Your Honor, I have information about other victims, other cases. Eleanor Blackwood has been running this operation for 15 years. I have names, dates, bank accounts. I'll testify against all of them in exchange for reduced charges." The courtroom erupted. Eleanor lunged at Ashley but was restrained by bailiffs. Michael stared at his wife in shock, the betrayal on his face almost ironic, considering his own treachery. "She's lying!" Eleanor screamed. "This was all Michael's idea. He came to me 3 years ago with the plan." And there it was, the criminal partnership devouring itself. They turned on each other like the rats they were, each trying to minimize their own guilt by maximizing the others. "Michael Sterling was the mastermind," Ashley continued, her voice steady. "He killed Jennifer Walsh. I have recordings of him bragging about it, saying how easy it was to make it look like an accident. He was planning the same for his mother. My legs gave out. Maria and Amanda caught me as I collapsed, the truth finally too heavy to bear standing. My son, my baby boy, was a murderer. He'd killed before, and would have killed me." "You lying witch!" Michael roared, struggling against his restraints. "You were the one who suggested the foxglove. You're the one who poisoned your previous husbands." "Previous husbands. Plural." The prosecutor's eyes gleamed as the defendants destroyed each other with their confessions. Judge Morrison pounded her gavel repeatedly. "Enough. Miss Sterling, any deal will be negotiated through proper channels." "Mr. Ent Sterling, you've just confessed to conspiracy to commit murder in open court. This bail hearing is concluded. All defendants are remanded without bail pending trial." "Mom!" Michael screamed as they dragged him away. "Mom, please, help me, I'm your son." I looked at him one last time. "My son died the day he planned to murder me. You're just the monster who killed him." His face contorted with rage. "You old fool. You stupid, pathetic woman. I should have killed you years ago. That money is mine. You're going to die alone, you hear me? Alone and unloved because you chose money over your own flesh and blood." The bailiffs dragged him away, his screams echoing through the courthouse. The last words I'd ever hear from my son were curses and death threats. Somehow, that made it easier. The mask was finally completely off. Outside the courthouse, I stood before the media circus, Amanda and Agent Reeves flanking me. "Mrs. Sterling, how do you respond to your son's threats?" a reporter shouted. I looked directly into the cameras, thinking of all the elderly parents watching, perhaps seeing themselves in my story. "I respond with the truth," I said clearly. "Elder abuse is real. Family exploitation is real. If you're watching this and you're afraid of your own children, know that there is help, there is hope. And there is no shame in choosing justice over toxic loyalty, especially when the criminal shares your DNA." The Sarah Mitchell Foundation would launch tomorrow. Jennifer Walsh's family had already called, wanting to contribute. My tragedy would become a shield for others. My son was right about one thing: I would die alone. But I'd die free, with my dignity intact, knowing I'd chosen justice over enabling evil. And that was a birthday gift worth more than any fortune. The aftermath of the arraignment hit like a Category 5 hurricane. Within hours, the story went viral. Boston Sun plots mother's murder for inheritance dominated every news outlet. My phone rang incessantly until Maria finally disconnected it. Reporters camped outside my Beacon Hill home like vultures, their cameras trained on every window. But the chaos outside was nothing compared to the devastation within me. 3 days after the arraignment, my body finally surrendered to the trauma. Maria found me collapsed in the bathroom at 4 in the morning, my heart racing at dangerous speeds, unable to breathe. The EMTs said it was a severe panic attack combined with exhaustion-induced arrhythmia. At the hospital, Dr. Morrison, my real physician, was blunt. "Sarah, your body is shutting down from stress. Your blood pressure is stroke level, you've lost 15 pounds in a week, and your cortisol levels are destroying your immune system. If you don't find a way to process this trauma, it will kill you faster than Michael ever could have." From my hospital bed, I watched the news coverage with numb detachment. They'd found 3 more victims, elderly women who died under mysterious circumstances after Michael had handled their legal affairs. The death toll might reach 5. My son wasn't just a would-be murderer. He was potentially a serial killer. Ashley had been moved to protective custody after threatening to expose what she called Eleanor's network, dozens of lawyers, doctors, and financial advisors across New England who specialized in exploiting the elderly. The FBI announced it was now a RICO investigation. My family tragedy had exposed an entire criminal enterprise. Amanda Chen arrived with documents requiring my signature. "Sarah, the Miami property has been seized. We've also frozen 17 accounts linked to Michael and Ashley, recovering approximately $2.3 million of the stolen funds. Give it all to Jennifer Walsh's family," I said weakly. "Sarah, this is your money." "No, it's blood money. Every penny is tainted with what my son became. I don't want it." That afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived, Michael's childhood friend, David Park, now a psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins. We hadn't spoken in 20 years, but he'd flown up from Baltimore after seeing the news. "Mrs. Sterling," he said, sitting beside my bed, "I need to tell you something about Michael, something I should have said years ago." My heart monitor spiked. "What do you mean?" "When we were in college, Michael, there was an incident. A girlfriend of his, Emma Rodriguez, died in a car accident. Michael was driving. He walked away without a scratch, but the police found it suspicious the brake lines looked tampered with, and Michael had just taken out a life insurance policy on her." The room spun. "He killed someone in college?" "We could never prove it. The case was dropped insufficient evidence. But I knew, the way he talked about her death, completely emotionless, even satisfied. He'd gotten $50,000 from the insurance. That's how he paid for law school without loans." Law school. I thought I'd been paying for it, depleting our savings to give him the best education. But he'd already had blood money funding his future. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. I was 22 and scared. He threatened me, said no one would believe me over him. By the time I found my courage, years had passed. I convinced myself maybe I was wrong. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Sterling. I'm so sorry." After David left, I lay in the hospital bed feeling my entire maternal history rewrite itself. Every memory was now suspect. Had Michael ever loved me, even as a child? Or had I given birth to someone incapable of love? A void in human form that consumed everything around it? Agent Reeves arrived that evening with more evidence. "We've accessed Michael's computer. Sarah, he had a file labeled Mother Disposal Plan dating back 18 months. Detailed notes on your routine, your finances, your medical history. He'd been planning this for over a year. 18 months of Sunday dinners where he'd kissed my cheek and called me mom while plotting my murder. 18 months of birthday cards and Mother's Day flowers while documenting my destruction. The betrayal was so complete, it transcended pain into something else, a numbness that felt like death itself. There's something else," Reeves continued carefully. "We found searches on his computer about insulin overdoses, untraceable poisons, and how to make deaths look accidental. The searches go back 5 years. 5 years. He'd been thinking about killing me for 5 years. That night, alone except for the security guard outside my door, I had what Dr. Morrison later called a psychological break. I found myself talking to Richard's photograph, begging him to explain how we'd created a monster. I saw Michael as a baby, reaching for me from his crib, morphing into Michael the killer, reaching for my throat. The hallucinations were so vivid I screamed, bringing nurses running. They sedated me, and in the chemical peace that followed, I made a decision. I couldn't live in Boston anymore. Every street held memories of Michael, his first day of school, teaching him to drive, his prom photos. The city itself had become a crime scene. The next morning I told Amanda, "I'm selling everything. The house, the cottage, everything except the Swiss accounts. I'm leaving Boston." "Where will you go?" "Somewhere," Michael has never been. Somewhere without memories. She understood. I'll handle the sales. Market value for the Beacon Hill property is around $4.5 million. The Nantucket cottage, another $2 million. Set aside half for the foundation. The rest I'll figure out later. 3 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital 20 pounds lighter, aged a decade but alive. The media frenzy had somewhat subsided, though my story had spawned countless think pieces about elder abuse, family violence, and the American dream turned nightmare. The trial was set for spring. 6 months to prepare to testify against my own son for murder. 6 months to find a way to survive the complete annihilation of everything I'd believed about my life. As Maria drove me home from the hospital, we passed a billboard for Sunrise Manor, the facility where Michael had planned to imprison me. Someone had spray painted across it, "Justice for Sarah Sterling." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Back at the house, I found hundreds of letters from strangers, elderly parents, sharing their own stories of exploitation, thanking me for my courage. One letter stood out, written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Mrs. Sterling, I'm 91 years old, and my daughter has been stealing from me for years. After seeing your story, I finally called the police. You saved my life. Thank you for choosing justice over silence. Perhaps this was my purpose now, not to be Michael's mother, but to be a voice for the voiceless, a warning to predators that their elderly victims might fight back." That night, in my empty house with bodyguards at every entrance, I sat in Richard's chair and began writing my memoir. Not for money or fame, but as evidence. Evidence that monsters could wear familiar faces, evidence that maternal love had limits, evidence that sometimes the bravest thing a mother could do was admit her child was evil and stop him from hurting others. The working title, My Son, the Stranger, A Mother's Story of Survival. Michael had wanted me dead. Instead, I would make sure his story lived forever as a cautionary tale, a horror story, a reminder that sometimes the call is coming from inside the house, from inside the family, from inside the womb that gave the monster life. The call came at midnight, 3 weeks before the trial was set to begin. Agent Reeves' voice was tense, urgent. "Sarah, we need you at the federal building immediately. We've discovered something that changes everything." Maria drove me through empty Boston streets, my hands trembling not from fear but from the Parkinson's-like tremors that had developed since my hospitalization. "Stress-induced," Dr. Morrison said. My body's way of manifesting trauma I couldn't process psychologically. The FBI building was blazing with light despite the hour. In a conference room, Agent Reeves waited with Marcus Hamilton, the prosecutor, and several agents I didn't recognize. Their faces told me this was catastrophic. "Sarah, sit down," Reeves said gently. "We've cracked Michael's encrypted files. What we found, it's extensive." She placed a tablet in front of me. On the screen was a spreadsheet titled Project Inheritance. My name was there, but so were 47 others. Elderly parents, all with substantial assets, all with adult children listed as partners. "It's a network," Hamilton explained, his voice grim. "Your son wasn't just working with Eleanor Blackwood. He was running a franchise operation, teaching other adult children how to systematically destroy their parents for money." The room tilted violently. Maria steadied me as I struggled to comprehend. 47 families? That we know of. Michael was taking a percentage of each successful transition, his word for institutionalizing the parent and stealing their assets. He had templates, scripts, lists of corrupt doctors and facilities. He was the mastermind behind what we're now calling the largest elder abuse conspiracy in U.S. history. I stumbled to the wastebasket, dry heaving while my mind reeled. My son hadn't just planned to kill me, he'd industrialized matricide and patricide, turned it into a business model. "The other children," I whispered. "Where are they?" 17 have been arrested across 6 states. Others fled when news of Michael's arrest broke. We have warrants for all of them. Reeves pulled up another document, emails between Michael and someone called Phoenix. Phoenix wrote, "The mother disposal template worked perfectly. She's been in the facility for 3 months, completely drugged. Already liquidated $2 million. Your system is genius, M." Michael replied, "Remember, the key is patience. Build the medical documentation over time. My mother trusts me completely. She'll sign anything I put in front of her. By her birthday, I'll have everything." I read my son discussing my destruction like a business case study, teaching others his methods. The word disposal burned into my retinas. That's all I was waste to be disposed of efficiently. There's more, Hamilton said reluctantly. We found a video. What kind of video? Michael recorded himself. Practicing. Rehearsing what he'd say at your commitment hearing, how he'd cry about his poor, confused mother. He filmed it like an instructional video for the others. They played it. There was my son, fake tears streaming down his face, telling an imaginary judge how heartbroken he was about my rapid decline. He demonstrated different emotional manipulations: the concerned son, the reluctant decision-maker, the devoted caregiver pushed to his limits. After each performance, he critiqued himself, noting what worked and what needed improvement. The tears need more build-up, he told the camera. Judges eat up the gradual breakdown. Start strong, voice crack at minute 2, visible tears by minute 3. I watched my son teach a masterclass in destroying mothers. When it ended, I was on the floor, Maria, and a paramedic checking my vitals. My blood pressure was 200/120. Stroke territory. We need to get her to the hospital, the paramedic said, but I grabbed Agent Reeves's arm. The other parents, the ones still alive, are they safe? We're extracting them from facilities now. 14 have been recovered so far, all showing signs of forced drugging. Your testimony will save them, Sarah. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. At the hospital, Dr. Morrison was brutal in his assessment. Another shock like this could kill you. Your body cannot take more trauma. But the revelations weren't done. The next morning, Ashley's lawyer arrived with a deal and new information. In exchange for reduced charges, Ashley would provide everything, including video recordings of Michael with his students. My client has 80 hours of recorded training sessions, the lawyer announced. Michael Sterling was building an empire of elder abuse. He called it the Silver Solution, a final solution for the parent problem. The Nazi reference wasn't lost on anyone. My son had branded genocide against the elderly. I watched one video in the prosecutor's office, just 5 minutes before I couldn't take any more. Michael stood before a whiteboard, teaching a room of young adults, all expensively dressed, all taking notes like MBA students. The beauty of elder abuse, my son explained with enthusiasm, is that society already devalues the elderly. They're seen as burdens, as medical problems rather than people. Use that. Every time your parent shows normal aging, forgetting where they put keys, repeating a story documented as decline. Build your case slowly. By the time you strike, everyone will believe the parent needs help. A young woman raised her hand. What if they fight back? Michael smiled, the same smile he'd given me at Sunday dinners. Parents never fight their children. It's their weakness. They love unconditionally, which makes them perfect victims. Even when they suspect something, they'll doubt themselves before they doubt you. Maternal and paternal love is the greatest vulnerability you can exploit. I turned off the video, but his words echoed. He was right. My love for him had blinded me for years, made me excuse every red flag, every cruel comment, every manipulative behavior. I'd loved him into becoming a monster by never holding him accountable. We're going to need you to testify about all of this, Hamilton said. The jury needs to hear from Patient Zero, the mother whose case exposed everything. Patient Zero. The origin point of an epidemic. Somehow that felt right. My tragedy had become the key to unlocking a massive criminal conspiracy. That night, unable to sleep in my hospital bed, I composed a letter to the other parents, the ones being extracted from facilities. Dear survivor, you don't know me, but our children trained together to destroy us. We share the unique agony of being betrayed by those we gave life to. Please know, it's not your fault. Love is not a weakness, even when predators exploit it. We will survive this, we will seek justice, and we will ensure no parent suffers this again. Sincerely, Sarah Sterling, Patient Zero. 47 families destroyed, hundreds of millions stolen, at least 5 confirmed murders, possibly more. And at the center of it all, my son, the boy I'd sung lullabies to, now revealed as the architect of a Holocaust against the elderly. The trial would be more than just my testimony against Michael. It would be a reckoning for an entire system that had turned patricide and matricide into a business model. And I would be there, however broken, however traumatized, to ensure that business closed forever. The meeting room at the Federal Detention Center was cold and sterile, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps. Ashley sat across from me, no longer the polished predator but a hollow-eyed woman in orange, her roots showing dark beneath the blonde dye. She'd requested this meeting through her lawyer, claiming she had information that would change everything. "You look terrible, Sarah," she said without preamble. "Lost more weight?" "Why am I here, Ashley?" She leaned forward, her cuffed hands clasped on the metal table. "Because what I'm about to tell you will destroy whatever's left of your illusions about Michael. But it might also save your life." My hands trembled, the constant tremor that had become my companion. "There's nothing left to destroy." "Oh, Sarah." Her laugh was bitter. "You still don't know the worst part. Michael isn't Eleanor Blackwood's protege. Eleanor works for him. He's been running this operation since he was 23, right out of law school." The room spun. "That's impossible. He only met you 3 years ago." "No, he met me 7 years ago. We've been planning your destruction for 7 years, Sarah. Every moment of the last 3 years when I played the devoted daughter-in-law. I was documenting your every word, every habit, building the case for your incompetence. 7 years. My legs went numb, and Maria had to steady me." The FBI agents recording our conversation leaned forward, equally shocked. "The Emma Rodriguez case in college, the girlfriend who died, that was his test run. He got away with it and realized he had a talent for making murder look accidental. By law school, he was recruiting others, teaching them his methods. Eleanor was one of his first students. She brought him cases, and he taught her the psychological manipulation techniques." "You're lying," I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew she wasn't. Ashley pulled out a worn notebook. How she'd hidden it, I didn't know. Michael's journal from law school. His real one, not the fake one he kept for appearances. Read page 47. With shaking hands, I opened to the marked page. Michael's handwriting. Neat and precise. "Mother visited today. Pathetic as always, so desperate for my approval. Gave me another check, $30,000 for tuition that's already paid by Emma's insurance. She actually apologized for it not being more. The beautiful irony. She's funding the research into how I'll eventually dispose of her. I estimate 10 more years of preparation. By 35, I'll have the network established, the methods perfected. Mother will be patient zero, the proof of concept that launches the empire." I vomited into the wastebasket, my body convulsing with horror. He'd been planning my murder since he was 22. Every hug, every "I love you," every Mother's Day card had been a performance while he refined his plan to kill me. "There's more," Ashley continued remorselessly. "The network isn't 47 families. It's over 200. Michael compartmentalized information. Even the FBI only has pieces. There are cells in Europe, Australia, Canada. He was going international." Agent Reeves, who'd been silently recording, finally spoke. "Why are you telling us this now?" "Because Michael's not done," Ashley said, looking directly at me. "Even from prison, he has followers. 3 of them are in Boston right now. They blame you, Sarah, for exposing the network. You're not safe." "We have protection on her," Reeves started. "Your protection is compromised. One of Michael's students works for the U.S. Marshals. Rebecca Chen, she's been feeding Michael information about Sarah's movements." The room erupted in activity. Reeves was on her phone immediately, barking orders. Maria moved closer to me, her hand on her concealed weapon. But I sat frozen, processing the magnitude of my son's evil. "Why warn me?" I asked Ashley. "What do you gain?" For the first time since I'd known her, Ashley looked genuinely human. "Because I'm pregnant. 3 months. It's Michael's, conceived right before the arrest. And I'm terrified that this baby will be like him, a genetic monster. I need you to know everything so you can warn me if you see the signs. If this child is like Michael, I need to know early enough to stop it. Pregnant. My grandchild was growing inside this woman who'd helped plan my murder. The cosmic cruelty of it made me laugh, a broken, hysterical sound that brought the prison medics running. "There's one more thing," Ashley said as they prepared to sedate me. "Michael has a kill switch. If he's convicted, if he gets life in prison, his followers have instructions. You won't make it to sentencing, Sarah. Neither will I. He'd rather see us dead than talking." The sedative took hold, but not before I heard Agent Reeves on the phone. We need to move her immediately. Safe House Protocol Alpha. The Sterling threat is active. 6 hours later, I woke up in an unfamiliar room. Generic furniture, blackout curtains, the subtle hum of surveillance equipment. Maria sat beside my bed, her expression grim. Where am I? Witness Protection Safe House. Location classified. Ashley's information was correct. We found 3 of Michael's followers surveilling your home. 1 worked for the marshals, just as she said. My home. The Beacon Hill house where I'd raised a monster, thinking I was raising a son. The trial, I asked? Postponed. The prosecution needs time to process the new information. Ashley's turned over everything: recordings, documents, names. The investigation just expanded to 12 countries. 12 countries. My son had built a global empire of matricide and patricide. He was 28 years old and had orchestrated more evil than most war criminals. I want to see him, I said suddenly. Sarah, that's not. I need to look him in the eye one more time to understand how I gave birth to this. 3 days later, against all advice, I sat across from Michael in a federal supermax facility. He was shackled hand and foot, 3 guards present, bulletproof glass between us. But his smile was the same, charming, warm, the smile that had fooled me for decades. Hello, Mother. You look unwell. Ashley told me everything. His smile widened. Did she? How thorough of her. Though I doubt she told you everything, she doesn't know everything. 200 families, Michael. 5 confirmed murders. 8, he corrected casually. But who's counting? The casual admission of murder made bile rise in my throat, but I forced myself to remain steady. Why? He leaned back, considering. Why? Because I could. Because parents are the perfect victims they love unconditionally, trust completely, and society expects them to deteriorate anyway. Because turning love into a weapon is the ultimate power. I loved you. I know, he said simply. That was your weakness. You loved the idea of me, the performance of me, but you never saw me, Sarah. The real me. The one who felt nothing when Dad died except opportunity. The one who killed Emma, not for money, but to see if I could. The one who's been planning your death longer than you've been planning your retirement. Each word was a dagger, but also a revelation. This wasn't my failure as a mother. This was something else, a malignancy that had worn my son's face but had never been my son. Your child, I said quietly. Ashley's pregnant. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Not emotion, exactly, but interest. Is she? How? Inconvenient for her. Though useful for me. Juries hesitate to give death sentences to new fathers. Even his unborn child was just a tool, a bargaining chip. There was nothing human left in him, if there ever had been. I'm going to testify, I told him. I'm going to tell them everything. No, Mother, he said softly, leaning forward until his breath fogged the glass. You're not. The threat was clear, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt no fear. What more could he take from me? He'd already taken my son because I'd never had one. I'd had a parasite that looked like a son. Watch me, I said, standing to leave. Sarah, he called as I reached the door. You asked why? The real answer is simpler. Because you let me. Every time you excused my cruelty as stress, every time you paid instead of demanding accountability, every time you chose blindness over truth, you gave me permission. You created me through your weakness. The words followed me out of the prison, into the armored vehicle, through the long drive back to the safe house. And the worst part was, buried in his evil, was a grain of truth. I had enabled him through my blind love. But now, with eyes wide open, I would be the one to stop him. The federal courthouse in Boston had been transformed into a fortress for the trial. Snipers on rooftops, bomb-sniffing dogs, metal detectors at every entrance. Michael Sterling's trial had become the most heavily guarded legal proceeding in Massachusetts history. The media called it the matricide conspiracy trial of the century. I sat in the prosecutor's preparation room, my hands steady for the first time in months. The tremors had stopped the day I'd confronted Michael in prison. Seeing him without his mask had somehow freed me from the physical manifestation of my trauma. Sarah, Marcus Hamilton said, entering with a stack of files. We need to discuss something before your testimony tomorrow. More revelations? I asked wearily. I don't think I can handle another surprise. This one's different. Michael's defense team is planning to argue that you were an abusive mother who drove him to criminality through neglect and emotional manipulation. The accusation should have devastated me. Instead, I laughed a genuine laugh, my first in months. Of course he is. It's the only card he has left. Hamilton looked surprised by my reaction. You're not upset? Mr. Hamilton, my son is a serial killer who built a global network dedicated to murdering parents. He can say whatever he wants. The evidence speaks for itself. The next morning, I entered the courtroom to find it packed beyond capacity. The families of Michael's victims filled row after row, elderly parents rescued from facilities, adult children whose siblings had been recruited, Jennifer Walsh's family. The weight of their expectations pressed on me, but also strengthened me. This wasn't just my story anymore. Michael sat at the defense table, wearing an expensive suit his followers had apparently provided. He looked every inch the successful young lawyer, not the monster he was. When our eyes met, he smiled and mouthed, "Hello, Mother." I took the witness stand, placing my hand on the Bible Richard had given me for our first anniversary. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." For 6 hours I testified. I detailed every manipulation, every theft, every moment of the conspiracy. I played the recordings, showed the documents, described finding his mother disposal plan. The courtroom was silent except for occasional gasps and crying from the gallery. Michael's attorney, a shark named Preston Blackwell, approached for cross-examination with predatory confidence. "Mrs. Sterling, isn't it true that you emotionally abused Michael throughout his childhood?" "No." "You didn't pressure him to be perfect? Demand straight A's? Force him into activities he didn't want?" "I encouraged him to do his best. I supported his interests. I loved him unconditionally." "Unconditionally?" Blackwell's voice dripped sarcasm. "Yet here you are, testifying against him." "My love was unconditional. My tolerance for murder is not." "You gave him money constantly. Were you trying to buy his love?" "I was trying to help my son. I believed his lies about needing help. Or were you enabling him, creating a dependent relationship so he'd never leave you?" I looked directly at Michael as I answered. "Mr. Blackwell, your client killed at least 8 people, built an international conspiracy to murder parents, and stole millions from the elderly. If you want to blame me for that because I paid his rent, go ahead, but the jury isn't stupid." The jury members nodded slightly. Several glared at Michael with open disgust. Blackwell tried another angle. "You mentioned your brother James left you $45 million. Quite convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" "Convenient," my voice rose. "My estranged brother died knowing my son was planning to murder me. He spent his final months investigating Michael, trying to protect me from across an ocean. There's nothing convenient about any of this. Yet you stand to profit considerably from your son's downfall." That did it. The composure I'd maintained shattered, but not into weakness, into fury. "Profit? Profit?" I stood in the witness box, my voice carrying to every corner. "I've lost 25 pounds. I have PTSD. I can't sleep without medication. I had to sell my home because every room holds memories of raising a sociopath. My son, the baby I carried, the child I raised alone after my husband died, is a serial killer who built a murder network. What exactly am I profiting, Mr. Blackwell?" "Objection," Blackwell said weakly. "Overruled," the judge said. "The witness may continue. I will donate every penny to helping Michael's victims. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation has already helped extract 37 parents from fraudulent institutionalizations. So yes, Mr. Blackwell, I'm profiting and saved lives." The gallery erupted in applause before the judge restored order. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Ashley went into premature labor in her cell. The baby, my grandchild, was born at just 6 months, fighting for life in the NICU. The trial was postponed as this new drama unfolded. I went to the hospital, against everyone's advice. Through the NICU window, I saw the tiny infant, covered in tubes and wires, weighing barely 2 pounds. The nurse, not knowing who I was, said, "Poor thing, mother's in custody, father's on trial for murder. What chance does this baby have?" What chance indeed? Was this innocent child doomed to carry Michael's genetic evil, or could nurture overcome nature? "I'm the grandmother," I told the nurse, who looked shocked. Can I sit with him?" They let me into the NICU after security clearance. I sat beside the incubator, looking at this tiny human who carried both my DNA and the DNA of a monster. He was so small, so fragile, so innocent. "I don't know what you'll become," I whispered to him, "but you deserve a chance to be more than your father's son. You deserve to know that love doesn't have to be a weapon." Ashley's lawyer found me there. "My client wants to speak with you." In the hospital's secure ward, Ashley looked destroyed physically and emotionally. "Is he alive?" "He's fighting. He's strong. Like his father," she said bitterly. "Maybe. Or maybe like his grandmother." Ashley studied me for a long moment. "If I give you custody, would you take him, raise him, try to save him from becoming Michael?" The request staggered me. Raise another child? After what happened with Michael? But looking at Ashley, herself a monster but still capable of wanting better for her child, I saw something Michael never had, the capacity to put someone else first. "Yes," I said, "but only if you sign away all parental rights, only if you testify fully against Michael, only if you help me understand how to spot the signs early." "Done," she said immediately. "I'll tell you everything. Every manipulation technique Michael taught me, every warning sign of psychopathy, everything. This baby won't become him. I won't let that be my legacy." When I returned to the safe house, Agent Reeves was waiting with urgent news. "Sarah, Michael's network is collapsing, but 3 of his top lieutenants have fled the country. They're vowing revenge against you. You'll need to be in witness protection permanently. Permanently. Never returning to Boston. Never visiting Richard's grave. Never seeing the places where the good memories, however few, were made. Will I be able to raise the baby in witness protection?" Reeves looked surprised. "You're taking custody?" "Someone has to break the cycle. Someone has to prove that genetics isn't destiny." That night, I sat writing in my journal, processing the day's events. Today, I testified against my son for murder. Today, I met my grandson, born into chaos but innocent of it. Today, I chose hope over fear, future over past. Michael may have destroyed my old life, but he won't destroy my capacity to love. This baby will know healthy love, proper boundaries, accountability. He'll know that love and justice can coexist. He'll know that his grandmother chose him when she could have walked away. Maybe that will be enough to save him from his father's fate. Tomorrow, the trial would continue. Soon, Michael would likely be sentenced to life without parole. But tonight, a 2-pound baby fought for life in the NICU, carrying both curse and possibility in his tiny veins. And I would be there, standing guard against the darkness, praying that love could triumph over genetics. The revelation came during week 3 of the trial, delivered by Eleanor Blackwood herself in a desperate bid for leniency. She sat in the witness box, no longer the composed predator but a cornered animal ready to reveal everything to save herself. "Michael Sterling wasn't my student," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was his. But there's something else, something about his childhood that Mrs. Sterling doesn't know." My blood froze. After everything, there were still secrets? When Michael was 15, he came to my husband, Dr. James Blackwood, for therapy. Richard Sterling had insisted on it after an incident. "What incident?" Prosecutor Hamilton demanded. Michael had poisoned a classmate's dog, claimed it was an accident, but Richard Sterling suspected otherwise. The therapy sessions lasted 2 years, and my husband kept detailed notes that documented Michael's complete lack of empathy, his fascination with death, his elaborate fantasies about killing his parents. The courtroom gasped. I gripped the gallery railing, my recovered strength evaporating. Richard had known. My husband had known something was wrong with Michael and had tried to get him help. Dr. Blackwood diagnosed Michael with antisocial personality disorder and malignant narcissism. He recommended intensive inpatient treatment, but Michael was brilliant. He learned to mimic emotions perfectly, convinced everyone he was improving. By 17, he had fooled even my husband. "Where are these notes now?" Hamilton asked. "Michael stole them when my husband died 5 years ago, but I have copies. I kept them as insurance, knowing eventually Michael would turn on me too." The notes were entered into evidence. I read them during the recess, each word a dagger. Patient shows no genuine emotional response to others' pain. Describes elaborate scenarios of parental murder with clinical detachment. When asked about his mother, patient states, "She's weak, pathetic, useful only for money. Father sees it too, that's why he sent me here." But I'll outlive them both. 15 years old, and he was already planning our murders. Another entry. Patient brought flowers to his mother after our session, a calculated gesture to maintain her emotional dependency. He describes these manipulations with pride, calling his mother laughably easy to control. Every flower, every hug, every I love you, all documented manipulations from a teenage sociopath. Richard had tried to protect us both. The therapy, which I'd thought was for normal teenage anxiety, had been his attempt to save our son, or save us from him. But Richard died when Michael was 21, taking the secret with him. There's more, Eleanor continued from the stand. Michael didn't just learn from the therapy, he used it as a training ground. Dr. Blackwood's techniques for identifying psychological vulnerabilities? Michael mastered them and turned them into weapons. Your son didn't become a monster, Mrs. Sterling. He was born one. The only thing that changed was his ability to hide it. If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. Michael's attorney objected frantically, but the damage was done. The jury had heard the truth. This wasn't created by bad parenting or trauma. This was nature, not nurture. I was absolved of guilt but burdened with a worse truth. I'd given birth to evil. That evening, I visited the NICU again. The baby, still unnamed, had gained 3 ounces. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine with surprising strength. Looking at him, I wondered, was it already there, coded in his DNA? Was I holding another Michael? Dr. Patricia Yanez, the NICU psychiatrist, found me there. Mrs. Sterling, I heard about today's testimony. You're wondering if the baby will be like his father. How did you? I've been following the trial. Everyone has. She sat beside me, watching the tiny infant breathe with mechanical assistance. Psychopathy has genetic components, yes, but it's not deterministic. Environment, early intervention, proper attachment, these matter enormously. Michael had all that. I loved him completely. Did he, or did he have a father who recognized the danger and isolated him through therapy? A mother he learned to manipulate from childhood. Sometimes, knowing a child is dangerous becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We treat them differently, they sense it, and they become what we fear. So what do I do with this one? Love him, but with boundaries. Watch for signs, but don't project them. Get him therapy from the start, not because he's broken, but to ensure he develops properly. And most importantly, don't let him become his father's son. Give him a new name, a new identity, a chance to be himself. That night, I made 2 decisions. First, I would name the baby James, after my brother who'd tried to save me. Second, I would raise him completely separated from Michael's legacy. No photos, no stories, no connection to his biological father. The next morning brought another shock. Ashley had attempted suicide in her cell, leaving a note, I can't be his mother. Sarah, save him or kill him, but don't let him become Michael. I'm too weak for either. She survived, barely, but the attempt had made her choice clear. She signed away all parental rights from her hospital bed, her hand shaking as she wrote. Promise me, she whispered, tubes down her throat making her voice raspy. Promise you won't let him become a monster. I promise, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. Back at trial, Michael took the stand in his own defense, a narcissist's fatal mistake. He couldn't resist the spotlight, the chance to show everyone how brilliant he was. My mother claims to be a victim, he said smoothly. But who's the real victim? The woman who inherits $60 million, or the son she emotionally abandoned to therapists and medications? You killed 8 people, Hamilton stated flatly. Allegedly. Though if I had, which I didn't, wouldn't the real crime be bringing unwanted children into the world and then acting surprised when they don't conform to your fantasies? He was hanging himself with every word, but couldn't stop. The narcissism that had driven his crimes now drove his self-destruction. Tell us about Jennifer Walsh, Hamilton pressed. Michael's mask slipped for just a moment. Jennifer was old, sick, alone. If someone theoretically helped her transition peacefully rather than dying slowly in poverty, wouldn't that be mercy? You stole $7 million from her. She had no heirs. The money would have gone to the state. At least theoretically, it went to someone who could use it productively. The jury looked horrified. Michael had just essentially confessed while maintaining the pretense of innocence. His own attorney had his head in his hands. "And your mother?" Hamilton asked. "Was she also going to be shown mercy?" Michael looked directly at me, his eyes black as a shark's. "My mother has been dead to me since I was 15. Whatever happened to her body would have been irrelevant." The courtroom was silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing, staring at Michael in horror. I stood up in the gallery, surprising everyone, including myself. "Your Honor, may I respond?" The judge, looking shaken himself, nodded. "Michael, you're right. I have been dead to you since you were 15 because that's when you killed whatever capacity for love you might have had. But I'm still alive, still standing, still fighting to save your son from becoming you. And that, Michael, is your only legacy, a cautionary tale, and a baby who will grow up knowing his father's name only as a warning." Michael's composure finally cracked completely. He lunged toward me, screaming obscenities, threatening to kill me and the baby. It took 4 bailiffs to restrain him as he revealed his true nature to everyone, the monster without the mask, the predator exposed. The jury would deliberate for less than an hour, but watching my son dragged away, foam at his mouth as he screamed death threats, I knew the verdict was already decided. The verdict came on a gray March morning. Guilty on all counts. 8 murders in the first degree, 47 counts of conspiracy to commit elder abuse, fraud exceeding $50 million. The sentence: life without parole, consecutive sentences totaling 320 years. Michael would die in prison, hopefully old and alone, experiencing the isolation he'd planned for his victims. He didn't look at me as they read the verdict. His eyes were fixed on something beyond the courtroom, perhaps imagining the empire he'd lost, or plotting revenge from behind bars. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, Michael stood and delivered one final performance. "This trial has been a travesty. My mother orchestrated everything to steal my inheritance. She's the real criminal here, and someday the truth will—" "Mr. Sterling," the judge interrupted, "you've been found guilty by a jury of your peers. Your continued denials only reinforce the diagnosis of malignant narcissism. You will serve your sentence at ADX Florence Supermax facility in Colorado, where you will have no contact with the outside world. May God have mercy on your soul, because this court will not." As they led Michael away in shackles, he turned to me one last time. No words, just a look that promised this wasn't over. Even facing eternity in a concrete box, he couldn't accept defeat. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was overwhelming. I stood at the microphones, $60 million in inherited wealth behind me, but feeling poorer than I'd ever been. "Mrs. Sterling, how do you feel about the verdict?" Justice was served, but there's no joy in it. 8 families lost loved ones. Dozens more suffered financial and emotional devastation. My son is a serial killer. There are no winners here. "What about the baby?" I looked directly into the cameras. "My grandson will be raised away from this shadow. He'll know he was chosen, loved, and given every opportunity to be good. That's all I can promise." 3 weeks later, I stood in a different courthouse for a different proceeding. Ashley's sentencing. She'd pled guilty in exchange for 15 years, eligible for parole in 10. As part of her plea, she'd provided evidence leading to 23 more arrests across the network. "Sarah," she said when they gave her a moment to speak to me, "I've signed everything. He's yours completely. New birth certificate, new name. James Richard Sterling, after your brother and husband, not his father." "Why, Richard?" I asked, surprised she knew my husband's name. "Because from what I learned, Richard saw what Michael was and tried to stop it. He deserves to be remembered in something good." It was the most human thing I'd ever heard Ashley say. Perhaps prison would teach her what freedom never had: remorse. The transition to witness protection happened quietly. One day I was Sarah Sterling of Boston. The next I was Sarah Matthews of Portland, Oregon, a retired teacher raising her grandson after a family tragedy. The FBI created an entire history: photos, documents, references. My old life was erased as thoroughly as if I'd died. The house in Portland was nothing like Beacon Hill, a modest craftsman in a quiet neighborhood where no one knew the Sterling name. The first night there, holding baby James as he finally breathed without machines, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. "You and me, little one," I whispered to him. "We're going to rewrite this story." Dr. Yanez had connected me with Dr. Robert Kim, a child psychologist specializing in early intervention for at-risk children. We started therapy when James was just 6 months old, not treatment, but observation, attachment building, ensuring healthy emotional development. He's remarkably responsive, Dr. Kim noted during our first session. Strong eye contact, appropriate emotional mirroring, secure attachment behaviors. These are all positive signs. But Michael showed those too, according to early videos. Perhaps. But you're different now. You know what to watch for. You won't enable concerning behaviors. That alone changes everything. 6 months into our new life, I received a letter forwarded through the FBI. It was from Margaret Wilson, my book club friend from Boston. Dearest Sarah, we miss you terribly but understand why you had to leave. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation has helped 43 families so far. Your tragedy has become salvation for so many. Patricia sends her love, as does everyone from the club. We're reading your memoir in our sessions. It's helped us understand how evil can hide in plain sight. Stay safe, stay strong, and know that you are loved and remembered. Margaret. My memoir, published under a pseudonym, had become a bestseller. When love becomes a weapon. A mother's story was required reading in several elder law programs. The proceeds, over $2 million, went directly to the foundation. One evening, as I gave James his bottle, I noticed something that made my heart stop. He was staring at me with intense focus, his expression oddly calculating for a baby. For a moment, I saw Michael's eyes in his face. Then James smiled, a real, genuine baby smile, and reached for my face with chubby fingers, gurgling with joy. Not manipulation, just a baby who loved his grandmother. You're not him, I told James firmly. You're your own person. And I'm going to make sure you know the difference between love and manipulation, between strength and cruelty, between truth and performance. The local newspaper ran a story about the anonymous donor who'd funded a new senior center with advanced security systems and on-site legal services. They'd never know it was built with sterling blood money, transformed into something protective rather than predatory. Ashley wrote once from prison, Sarah, I dream about him, not James, but Michael. He tells me I failed, that I was weak, that I should have killed you when I had the chance. I wake up sick with myself for ever thinking he loved me. He's not capable of love. Thank you for saving James from both of us. Don't write back. Let me disappear. Ashley. I didn't write back, but I did send photos of James to her lawyer, proof that her son was healthy, happy, free from the sterling curse. My therapist, Dr. Morgan, even in witness protection, I needed help processing the trauma, asked me once, do you regret having Michael? I regret not seeing what he was sooner. I regret every enabled manipulation, every excused cruelty. But no, I don't regret having him, because his evil exposed a massive criminal network, because his arrest saved dozens of elderly parents, because his son might grow up to be everything Michael wasn't. Sometimes good comes from evil, just not in the way we expect. As James's first birthday approached, I realized I hadn't thought about Michael in weeks. He was serving his time in solitary confinement, allowed 1 hour of exercise daily in a concrete cage. No visitors, no phone calls, no letters, complete isolation until death. Meanwhile, I was teaching James to walk in our backyard, his tiny hands gripping mine as he took unsteady steps toward a future unlimited by his father's crimes. Every laugh, every milestone, every moment of genuine emotion was proof that genetics wasn't destiny. Gamma, James said clearly one morning, his first word. Not mama or data, but Gamma, his version of grandma. I cried then, holding this precious child who'd chosen me as his first word, who would know only love without manipulation, boundaries without cruelty, truth without performance. Michael was right about one thing: I had died. The naive, enabling Sarah Sterling was gone. In her place stood Sarah Matthews, grandmother, guardian, protector of innocence, and proof that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable evil, even when it shares your DNA. 5 years had passed since I'd become Sarah Matthews. James was now a vibrant 5-year-old, nothing like his father except for the sharp intelligence in his eyes, intelligence tempered with empathy, kindness, and genuine joy. We'd built a beautiful life in Portland, far from the Sterling nightmare. But karma, I learned, has a longer memory than any of us. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while James was at kindergarten. Agent Reeves, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 years, sounded shaken. "Sarah, Michael is dead." The words hit me like ice water, but not with grief, with a complex mixture of relief and unfinished sorrow. How? Another inmate. Michael had apparently been running a new scheme from prison, manipulating vulnerable inmates' families, getting them to send money. He chose the wrong target. The man's son discovered the con, and justice was served with a sharpened toothbrush to the throat. My son died as he lived, scheming, manipulating, destroyed by his own greed. I felt nothing. The woman who would have collapsed at such news had died long ago. "There's more," Reeves continued. "Before he died, Michael wrote something, a confession of sorts. The guards found it hidden in his cell. Sarah, he admitted to 12 murders, not 8. 4 we never knew about, elderly people whose deaths were ruled natural causes years ago. If this scene touched your heart, tap like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. 12 lives. My son had stolen 12 lives before his 30th birthday. The knowledge that I'd given birth to such evil should have destroyed me, but instead, it solidified my resolve. James would never know this legacy. This knowledge would die with me. But the universe wasn't done with its revelations. Ashley was released on parole that same week, having served her minimum sentence. She didn't contact me, she'd kept that promise, but she did something unexpected. She turned herself in for additional crimes, confessing to poisoning her first 2 husbands before Michael. "I can't live with it anymore," she told prosecutors in a recorded confession that made national news. Meeting Michael didn't corrupt me. It revealed what I already was, but seeing Sarah raise James with such pure love, even knowing what his parents were, I need to pay for what I've done. It's the only education in morality I can give my son, that actions have consequences. She was sentenced to life without parole. The education she'd finally received about conscience came too late for redemption, but perhaps just in time for James's salvation. The day after Ashley's sentencing, I sat James down for a conversation I'd been dreading but knew was necessary. He was old enough now to notice he didn't have parents like other kids. "James, sweetheart, you know how some flowers grow in mud but still bloom beautiful and clean?" He nodded, his innocent eyes nothing like Michael's, despite sharing the same color focused on mine. "You're like that flower. You came from a difficult place, but you've grown into something wonderful. Your parents made bad choices, terrible choices that hurt people. But their choices aren't your choices. Their knowledge of cruelty isn't your inheritance. Do you understand?" "They were bad people?" he asked simply. "They were people who chose to be bad, yes, but you get to choose to be good. And you do, every single day. When you share your lunch with Tommy, when you help Mrs. Chen with her groceries, when you cry at sad movies because you feel for others. That empathy, that love, that's who you are. Will I become bad like them?" The fear in his voice broke my heart. "No, my darling, because you have something they never had, the knowledge that actions have consequences, that other people's feelings matter, that love isn't a weakness but the greatest strength there is. You have the education of knowing what not to become." That night, I found James in his room, drawing pictures. Not the violent images I'd feared finding one day, but drawings of our family, him, me, and our dog Max, surrounded by hearts and suns. The normalcy of it made me weep with relief. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We'd helped over 300 families escape elder abuse, provided free legal services to thousands, and successfully lobbied for stricter laws protecting the elderly. Every life saved was a small redemption for the lives Michael had taken. Standing before Congress to testify about elder abuse legislation, I shared the lesson I'd learned. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. The lesson our society must learn is that protecting our elderly isn't just about financial security, it's about recognizing the signs of emotional manipulation, the slow erosion of dignity that predators like my son orchestrated. The bill passed unanimously, the Sterling Mitchell Elder Protection Act. Michael's name would forever be associated not with his crimes but with their prevention. The ultimate lesson in karmic justice. Dr. Kim, who'd been monitoring James for 5 years, delivered his final assessment. James shows 0 signs of antisocial personality disorder. He has advanced empathy for his age, strong moral reasoning, and genuine emotional connections. The education you've provided, the boundaries you've set, The love you've shown, it worked, Sarah. Nature didn't triumph over nurture this time. I looked at my grandson, now teaching his kindergarten class about kindness to animals, something Michael had never possessed, and knew that the cycle was truly broken. The lesson wasn't just that evil could be stopped, but that good could grow from the most poisoned soil if tended with wisdom instead of blind love. One last surprise awaited. James's biological grandfather, Ashley's father, whom she'd been estranged from, reached out through my lawyer. He was a retired teacher named William, who'd cut Ashley off years ago when he discovered her true nature. "I failed my daughter," he wrote. "I saw the signs but didn't know how to stop her. The education I should have insisted on, the intervention I should have pursued, I was too weak. But I'd like to know my grandson. If you'll let me, I promise to respect every boundary you set." After extensive background checks and supervised visits, William became part of our lives. A gentleman who'd been victimized by his daughter just as I'd been by my son, he brought James the gift of knowing that goodness existed on both sides of his biological family. Dear viewers of Voices of Auntie Rose, this story of Sarah Sterling is more than just a tale of betrayal. It's a lesson in recognizing that toxic love can be more dangerous than honest indifference. How many of us ignore red flags because they come wrapped in familial obligation? How many elderly parents watching this recognize their own children in Michael's manipulation? The knowledge that your child could be your greatest enemy is perhaps the hardest truth any parent can face. But the education Sarah received through pain became wisdom that saved not just her life but hundreds of others. What did you think of Sarah's journey? Have you experienced family members who saw you as a resource rather than a person? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help others know they're not alone. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Voices of Auntie Rose, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to choose justice over toxic loyalty. Every day, I share stories that explore the complex depths of human nature and the triumph of the human spirit. To everyone watching, I wish you good health, peaceful days, and the wisdom to recognize love from manipulation. May you find the strength to set boundaries that protect your dignity, and may your lives be filled with genuine connection rather than performed affection. Until we meet again in tomorrow's story, remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable those who would destroy us, even when they share our blood. Goodbye for now, dear friends, and I'll see you in the next video.